Hello everyone. I'm not on camera tonight. You're very welcome. How are we all? Apologies for the lateness of the hour, but you know, I like to be fashionably late. The Kev curve always comes second. Actually, that doesn't sound good, does it? You get what I mean. Although I suppose coming second if you're in a gangbang, is that necessarily great either? Well, that's just second last, isn't it? What the fuck am I talking about? Jesus Christ. Full of absolute shit. Yes, we're going to be on with No Justice of the MTG variety in just a moment. Firstly, apologies for everyone in YouTube chat. I need to get my channel verified again, because apparently YouTube seems to think that I might be a different person than I was when they first verified me. So you can't give me any money today on YouTube. But you can come over to twitch.tv/KFLogan1875, and even if you just give me a cheeky follow, that's free. But you can also give me money in the form of bits messages. 200 bits or more gets you a text-to-speech. You can become a subscriber. You can subscribe with Amazon Prime. You can give subs to the community. You can do super chats via the Streamlabs link below. You can what else can you do? You can do other things. I've totally forgotten. You can help me out on Patreon and or PayPal. You can
stop it. Get some help.
You can stop it and get some help. That is also an option. Thank you, Dr. Lewis, for resubscribing. Much fucking love to you. 38 months. Seek help. And to be honest with you, I appreciate that YouTube think I'm capable of such change. I appreciate that they believe in me that much. But I am still the same feckless garbage bag that I was before. And they should have known this, I feel. You know?
Success.
She does not check her Discord nearly as effectively as
Get some help.
she should, is all I will say. Scandalously so. Hello there, Minnie Pidgington. I think I know who you are from the Discord / YouTubes. Hello there. Thank you for the subscription. We are now on a hype train. If we get to level 2 of the hype train, I will finger the BBC's concept of impartiality, because it is dead. Yeah, Nigel Farage on YouTube, not on YouTube, on BBC for the 5th time this week, which is odd considering he's never had an MP elected. He's never himself been elected an MP, but apparently he needs all of the press coverage. Okay, I'm going to highlight the message. What do you mean get started? How do I highlight a message on here? Highlight my message. Check.
Stop it.
Discord.
Get some help.
I'm trying to get noticed. I'm trying to get Senpai to notice me, goddammit. Thank you, Lord Fritus, for resubscribing. 45 months. You are, honest to God, you are sick. You're sick in the fucking head. 45 months. You are a lunatic. God bless you. Anyway, by the way, Lord Fritus, as a frogoid, and that is the politically correct way of describing them. What do you make of Macron being a melter? What's going on there, mate? Yeah, for those who don't know, Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, although not for much longer, has he's called parliamentary elections right as the far right have just won bigly in the fucking European elections. He's a fucking idiot, isn't he? Bonjour.
Hello, Kevin. Sorry, I didn't catch your message there. I was in the middle of a very long rant.
I assumed so, yes, and I mean, I am, of course, reticent to interrupt such a rant.
Oh, sorry, I was getting mad at briefcase wankers.
Fair enough. That's not any different than usual, but I appreciate it nonetheless.
Absolutely. So just getting mad. People, some like, do you remember in the 7-way debate where Carla Denyer said Keir Starmer's changed the Labour Party into the Conservative Party? Got a bit of a titter.
I did, yes, yeah.
Got a bit of a titter in the audience, which was fine. But a bunch of the briefcase wankers from the Labour Party are mad. They're absolutely mad that she said it. Oh, it's sixth form student politics. And I'm just like, it's just true. Like,
it's just actually, yeah, it's just actually correct. Yes, that's actually.
Yeah.
But we were talking a little bit about the French situation right now with them calling a snap election, and the same is, I think, true here in the sense that the problem with the rise of the far right in France is that the Macron doesn't have, even if he gets somehow a majority in the parliament, he's not going to be able to do anything because he doesn't want to do anything. And the same is true here, that we are a desperately broken country, and Keir Starmer's plan is to do nothing about that. Just to say, oh, national renewal, and then hope it happens, I guess?
Hope the private sector delivers.
Yeah. And I've said this before, if the free market could solve these problems, it already fucking would have. It hasn't. Maybe we need some sort of government intervention, I suspect. But no, that's communism, and of course
it is literally communism. Again, all these people say, we have to vote Emmanuel Macron to stop Marine Le Pen. And I was like, well, you're not stopping Marine Le Pen. You are delaying Marine Le Pen by the next 4 years because she's not going to lose the next election if the fucking miserable centre ground liberal bellend that everybody hates and hates even more now after the attempted pension reforms doesn't do anything to radically change society, because all of those problems will still be there, except you'll have a president who will not be able to run for another term, replaced by somebody who's even less likable and even less well known, up against the titan of far right politics in Europe, and they're going to fucking lose. Well, and of course, the Liberals will not back a socialist to beat her either.
Well, this is the thing, right? You've got to vote for Emmanuel Macron, otherwise you're going to have like a kind of fascist police state beating down on peaceful protesters who want to have their voice heard in the streets of Paris. Oh no, that already happened. Oh fuck. Oh, it turns out fascism's okay as long as it's neoliberal in colour.
As long as it doesn't threaten capital, that's the end of the day, right? As long as it doesn't threaten like the pension provision or the mortgage rates of comfortable people in the middle of the income spectrum, or the upper middle of the income spectrum, it doesn't fucking matter to these people how many poor people or minority people get fucked in the process.
True. By the way, do you have the link to the Laura Kay thing? Because I couldn't find it on the BBC's website.
If you know them, yes, it's just found it on YouTube somewhere.
For some reason, look, I know it happened because I've seen clips of it, but it's not on their website. So
yeah.
I wonder what's happened. I'll tell you. Don't get me wrong, Maria. If delaying it was in order for it to be stopped, that would make sense, right? If you were delaying it by 4 years because you had a government that was actually going to do something about this problem and start to drain the swamp of the rising fascism, that would be dope. But you're just delaying it to make the situation potentially much fucking worse, because that swamp will have grown enormously in 4 years. You're not stopping it. You're not even delaying it. You're just ensuring it's going to be worse when it arrives, because the majority they'll have in Parliament will be bigger. The majority they'll get at the presidential election will be bigger. The Liberals will absolutely not vote for a socialist, as No Justice just said. So you're going to end up with the situation being fucking worse.
Exactly. It was literally exactly what we were saying about Joe Biden. Like, you're going to delay Trump for 4 years. He's coming back this year and he's going to fucking win again.
I'm not entirely sure he will win again, but yeah, because he literally said during the election, albeit in private, nothing fundamentally will change. Well, then don't expect any fucking different outcome. Don't expect any different outcome then. If the same situation that led to Trump being elected in the first place is fundamentally going to stay in place, then he's probably going to get elected a fucking second time. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we told them not to run Joe Biden. We told them to get somebody else. He said he was going to try and be a one-term president at the start. How long did that fucking promise last? And now here he is, 4 years again, failing in the election. He's going to fucking lose because he can't keep his hands off the genocide button.
Well, Hopefully he does get something sorted, because he needs that out of the way by November, otherwise he might be fucked. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's such a shame. He didn't give a fuck about the Palestinian people, but now that it might hurt his election chances, he's starting to pull his finger out a little bit.
Well, it's just like how Labour were like full-throated like Israel supporters like basically for the entirety of the time. Oh, what? We might lose voters to other parties. Well, I guess we want to call for a ceasefire and pledge for a Palestinian state, as if that was, that, again, there's something they could have done ages ago. But no, they were fucking muttering around. She has a right to defend herself. Humanitarian pause, all that bullshit. And like, no, mate, look, you've already fucking lost here. You've lost my vote forever.
Well, did you know? Did you see that Sheldon Adelson, who thankfully is dead? Can we get some lols in chat for that? But his wife, who now controls his fortune, and he was the guy who like bankrolled the GOP for fucking 20 years. His wife has just given a significant chunk of money to Trump, and apparently, because they're massive Zionists, their demand was of Trump, and apparently he seems to have acceded to this, albeit in private, that they want West Bank annexation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not surprised. I mean, we all saw the Trump plans for the peace process.
Yeah, basically, Trump's plan is not only is Israel doing a genocide, it isn't doing enough of a genocide. We need to kill all of them. Fucking hell, man.
God, fucking hell. Dude, imagine how much better this whole fucking world would be if Sanders had won in 2016 and Corbyn had won in 2017. How much less fucked both of these countries would have been.
Well, we do like a Simpsons reference, so I'm always called back to Lionel Hutz. Imagine that kind of world, and it goes there, it's all everyone holding hands and rainbows and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a dream. Although Corbyn would have been torn, of course, because he likes Bernie Sanders' politics, but Bernie Sanders is Jewish, and he's Hitler, so...
That's true, yeah. There's one thing we know about Corbyn, massive anti-Semite. No evidence for this. There's no evidence at all that he's anti-Semite, but the press told me that he was one, therefore he must also be one.
He did write Mein Kampf, so... Like, I don't know what more evidence you need, really. He's literally Adolf fucking Hitler. Anyway... Laura Kay. Fun times.
Excellent. Big fan. Time for our state propaganda.
To number 10. The Prime Minister's had a dreadful few days after his D-Day blunder, but the Tories are still trying...
Well, it's not even a D-Day blunder. Did you see that the French government were told that he wasn't even coming at all?
And then to get railroaded into going.
Yeah. His team had to negotiate with him to go just to the first bit. You should actually resign, mate. You should actually resign. You are a fucking national disgrace.
I mean, as what we pointed out before you came on the stream, that like somebody literally asked a cabinet minister, "Is your party leader still going to contest this election after the election had been called?" Like, when do you hear that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, they literally then Tory MPs are now saying they're in survival mode. That doesn't. They're closer in wipeout mode, really and truly at this point. Yeah, no, it's. He must be trying to lose. Like, the D-Day thing is the easiest bit of politics in the world. You get to, without spending any money or taking any decisions, you get to look like a statesman. You get to rub shoulders with, fucking Joe Biden and Emmanuel Macron and all these people. You get to look like a big fucking, swing a big dick on the big stage. You get to make a speech about liberty and defeating fascism and Britain's great place in the world and blah blah blah, and everyone's ignores for a couple of days the fact that the economy's a bit shit and all the rest of it, because the media are just like jingo jingo jingo, and he managed to fuck that up. How do you fuck that? It's an open goal, you cunt. What are you doing?
I mean, it's funny to me at this point that basically Rishi Sunak's election plan was just to hope the media were on his side. And basically what they've done is that the media have noticed, after 14 years of everything being shit, suddenly the media have also noticed this, 14 years later than the rest of the country, apparently. And they're digging the boot in on things that they didn't even bother digging the boot in on Boris Johnson for. Like, remember when the BBC used the wrong footage of Boris Johnson laying a wreath so he didn't lay it upside down? Yeah, they're not giving Rishi Sunak the same benefit of the doubt, are they?
No. And you know why that is? Because they can't stand an Asian short king. It's outrageous.
I mean, you joke, but
I only partly joke.
partly joke.
The
yeah,
short
like,
bit was the joke. Yeah, no, there's no
Yeah.
doubt there's an element of racism to it. Like Nigel
Yeah.
Farage's little dog whistle about he doesn't understand our culture. Basically saying he's brown, he doesn't get it. No, it's because he's a rich cunt that he doesn't get it. It's got nothing to do with him being brown. You know there were fucking Indians, millions of them, that fought with us on the Second World War. And quite a few of your voters, Mr. Farage, who were on the other side.
yeah.
Trying to torture Labour with their disputed claims about tax. The power of the smaller parties has been centre stage this week. And there's been more antics on the campaign trail, and full-on Farage has been making the Conservatives very nervous. In the latest of our leader interviews, he will join.
Can the BBC stop giving him a fucking a gob job? Like, all week? How many fucking times has he been on the BBC now? A guy
like,
who's never
doesn't-
had an MP elected, has failed to be elected 7 times himself. Like,
I mean, his party is polling third. So at the end of the day, at the very least, right, he should have at least one leader's interview. But what? 2 days after they give him like a massive stage on the debate stage as well.
let's
just
have a
having,
look.
Like,
He was
full
on
on Farage for 3
he was
days.
on Question Time, right? He was on
And Question Time, yeah.
He was on Question Time. He was on the 7-way debate. I saw him being on the BBC News 24. We've now had him this leadership interview. Like, is it the Farage Broadcasting Corporation now? Are you taking the
Yeah, I
fucking
mean, it
piss?
always has been.
Carla
Remember the one
Denyer.
up to the
Look, the
2016
Greens have an
vote?
MP. Carla Denyer has been on twice. No, that's actually not the end of the world because she has one MP. Okay, she's a minor party and she's been on twice. That's fine. But this dickhead has poached an MP from the Tories. Has never had anyone elected in either of the parties he had, and yet he's being given just carte blanche by the fucking national, publicly funded broadcaster. It's ridiculous.
Join us from Essex, and Stephen Flynn, the leader of the SNP in Westminster, will join us from Aberdeen. And with us in the studio
Get ready for your rolled R's, people.
for the programme this morning, Mel Stride, close ally of Rishi Sunak, the Work and Pensions Secretary, and the woman who would be Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, if Labour
Oh,
wins
we've
the
got 2 Tories in the order. Oh, cool. Awesome.
election. Welcome to you both. Mel, rough old week for you guys.
We've got time. We've got 4 weeks to the general election, Laura, and the only poll that's going to matter is what happens on July the 4th.
Thought you might say
The only dickhead who says that is the side that's losing.
Pretty much, yeah.
When they say the only
Yeah.
poll that matters is on election day, that's because the polls you currently see are fucking dreadful.
I mean, like, they probably... The thing is, one of the things people keep asking is, why on earth did Rishi Sunak call the election now? They're so far behind, he's going to get destroyed. And I'm just like, it was getting worse.
Yeah.
The polls are continually getting worse for the Conservatives. Unlike usually, during an election period, the polls are supposed to close, right? They're supposed to be electoral tightening
Yeah.
as you come up to the election day, and then people are more likely to vote one way. The longer this election is going, the worse it's getting for the Tories. Not just because of all the gaffes, but just in general, people just the more they see these people and they scrutinise the last 14 years, and they're broadcast on TV as being part of the regular programming because it's election season, everyone wants to cover it. The more people see of these wankers, the more they hate them, the more they want them gone forever, and all it's doing is allowing Labour to get more votes, Reform to get more votes, and the likelihood of the Conservatives existing as a political party after this election is dwindling every single day. And this would have happened whether the election was called or not too, because the things that were making the electorate angry, they're not being election made people hate the Conservatives more. More people going to be able to go on higher mortgage rates as their fixes go off. That is going to do it worse for them. The votes were going to get worse during the summer. Like, everything that could possibly go bad for the Tories, apart from maybe inflation, was getting worse as time went on. They should have called the election a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
It would have been better for them to do that then.
Well, firstly, you assume that they put party before anything else, and they don't. They put themselves before the party, and then the party before the country. That's the order condescendi on that one. And secondly, I think you overcomplicate things. It's not even that he knew it was going to get worse and so called the election. This is the only way he was going to avoid the ignominy of Liz Truss by being elected as leader, in theory, of the Tory party, and then not facing a general election. That was the only way that was going to happen, because literally even after he'd called the election, there were still Tory MPs desperately scrabbling around trying to stop it. That's how much they didn't want him to fight the fucking election. So he did it. Basically, he did it because otherwise he was going to, he just wasn't going to be able to face an election, and they were going to end up with a sixth leader. Brilliant. Although, to be fair, he did beat the lettuce on this particular occasion.
It's true. I mean, he got beaten by Liz Truss, he got beaten by lettuce, so he's sort of like fourth choice at this point behind Boris, Liz, and the lettuce.
Yeah, he didn't even make the podium next to a vegetable and a lettuce.
Do I think the possibility of Lib Dems being the official opposition is real now? I mean, it was always a real possibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now I think Nigel Farage standing for reform, like the D-Day moment, I think it's more likely that the Lib Dems the official opposition than the Conservative Party rally back to it being a small majority.
I don't know about it being the majority. I honestly, I think it's toss of a coin now that Farage is running. Look, the D-Day thing obviously hurts them enormously, but people do tend to forget, and there's football coming and all the rest of it. So, but the country will be a little distracted, but people will always see Nigel Farage because he gets, like, again, it's the Trump thing, because they get views, because they're they say outrageous things and they're fucking wankers. They'll get headlines, they'll get TV coverage and all the rest of it, which is exactly the mistake that they made in 2016 in America, which they're making now with Farage. Only he can't become Prime Minister, so it's not a problem in that respect. But because that's happening, the right-wing vote that the Tories are trying to win, because they're not even pretending to win centrist votes at this point. They're just looking to not get wiped out by Farage. They look at Farage and think, well, he's not the Tories. We fucking hate the Tories. Why would we vote for these pricks? And again, because he's going on immigration, and even though the Tories rhetorically have been very anti-immigration, if you look at the numbers, it's ridiculous.
The opposite.
They've done the exact opposite. I mean, I'm not going to do the Sir Keith thing and say he's the most liberal about the thing, because that's wanker talk. You're an idiot, Keith. Shut the fuck up. But they are, in terms of raw numbers, they've allowed in far more people than has ever been allowed in. It's ridiculous. So, if he's going to keep banging if he's going to keep banging that drum and keep saying the Tories don't give a fuck about immigration, look at the numbers, that kills them. That absolutely fucking destroys them.
Oh, it really does. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the thing as well is that, of course, you say there's been levels of very high net migration. This was a Boris Johnson change to policy that allowed this to happen. I think you and I both support, but the Conservative Party's base absolutely don't support that, especially when the manifesto promised a reduction in legal immigration. And on top of that, we have the crisis with the irregular migration that's happening as well. And they made it an issue. It could have been a quiet thing that Dover constituencies cared about, but everybody else ignored. They made it the mainstay electoral issue for the party with the Rwanda plan and Stop the Boats being on all of the podium. And then, did they succeed? No, things have gotten worse from a thing that they made central to their electoral. Voting in the blue team again. Like, what are you doing other than just stopping Keir Starmer if you refuse to vote for a party who actually represents your values in earnest, rather than just tactically voting for a party that clearly doesn't give a shit about you and has taken your vote for granted? Is exactly how I feel about people still voting Labour on the promise of something vaguely progressive, because they don't represent it either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you genuinely care, and again, I don't think you or I really care that much about immigration or whatever, or are largely pro-immigration. But if you're a person for whom immigration is like a bad thing and you want to see it reduced, or indeed, to kick people out and all that Daily Mail shite, why would you vote for the Tories? What reason have they given you? Like they even the ridiculous, expensive shit plan of Rwanda, they still couldn't even do that.
Yeah.
They're just in terms of raw numbers, it's fucking awful.
People are saying your stream's died, as by the way, Kev, so you might want to reload Twitch.
Apparently I'm now back. Yeah. I don't know what's wrong with my internet in the last couple of days.
I think there are loads of other things that the Tories have done that Conservatives would hate, like all of these tax rises,
high taxes,
all of this increase in like the public debt and all this fiscal expansion. But the problem is, of course, is that they say they hate this. They say they hate public spending. They say they hate high taxes. But Boris Johnson said he was going to do this. He said he was going to do this in 2019. He said he was going to spend all this public money, all these public work programs, all of this state intervention into the economy. And these people hate Sunak and Truss and want Boris back, even though Boris was the one who promised them the policy that they now say that they hate and are voting for Reform UK for. It's almost like these people actually don't really care about the policy. They just like the figureheads, the Farages and the Boris Johnsons of this world. Because as I've said, like, I've been conciliatory towards the Boris Johnson platform. I don't think it was good or perfect, and I would rather have had Corbyn. But if you compare it economically to Truss, Sunak, Cameron and May, like, it's definitely like the best of those five. But real conservatives who love Boris Johnson, for some reason, They say they hate those policies, yet they voted for it when it was Johnson doing it. They're inexplicable voters, really, really and truly.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And I don't mind the high taxes necessarily, albeit that they're very
same.
unfairly distributed because it's Tory cunts. But I like the idea of high tax. But we're paying through the nose for the worst services in, not necessarily living memory, but in recent memory, let's say.
Yeah.
Awful. Absolutely atrocious. They've hollowed it out and it hasn't been cheaper. Which again is the false economy of austerity.
Say that. Shabana, are you feeling chipper?
Well, I agree. The only poll that matters is the one that takes place on July the 4th. We're in a strong position, but we're still out there fighting for every vote.
OK, well, we'll look forward to speaking to both of you a bit later in the programme. And we'll hear from John Curtis, of course, who will give us his 60 seconds on Sunday, his need to know on the polls.
Now, as many as 1 in 4...
What the fuck? Why do they keep reanimating this corpse? Leave him alone. Leave him alone to the ever after. He doesn't want to keep crossing the River Styx every fucking Sunday. Jesus.
I do love
2019 Tory voters are saying they will back reform.
And our team at the desk for the next hour this week,
sure.
Amber Rudd, the former Conservative Home Secretary.
That was a very
Matt
short
Black, the
intervention
boss
from
of
John Curtis.
It
Race
was,
Union,
yeah.
And John Caldwell, billionaire, I think, and former Conservative donor. A warm welcome
Well, that's
to
because
all of you.
they had to cut it off short because he opened his jaw up massively and loads of scarab beetles came out. That's a mummy reference. There you go.
the cohort that's most moving to Reform UK are Leave voters. And I'm just like, why are you abandoning the Conservatives? Like, of all of those years of not getting Brexit done after they promised to do so, the one guy who actually got Brexit done was Rishi Sunak. Like, that's your policy, the thing that you care about the most. He was the one who got it done and finished it off with the Windsor Framework. Why are you mad at Sunak over? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, he is brown. Have you noticed that?
That's also true. He is
Tories,
brown.
The Tories are not fans of those of a darker hue.
View. And morning, of course, to you. Let's start with the headlines, as we always do. On the front of the Sunday Times, a front page that might please the Labour Party. They splash on their promise not to raise some key taxes.
Jesus.
Stop calling things a triple lock!
It's just triple lock. Everything's a triple lock. Can we have a triple lock on not doing triple locks anymore, please? For fuck's sake.
Is in the manifesto coming this week. The Observer also has a Labour story going on the party's promise to set up specialist courts for rape cases. But the Daily Telegraph has an interview with the Energy Secretary, Claire Coutinho.
Can I just say, we haven't focused on it too much in recent times because we've got an election going on, but the picture you can see there of 2 of the 4 released Israeli hostages, have you ever seen a more naked example of the way in which certain people are valued as humans and some are not? That we're supposed to celebrate 4 people being released in an operation that killed over 200 Palestinians.
And again, we could have easily avoided having to do the rescue and having to kill all the Palestinians if they'd have just agreed to the ceasefire proposal with the prisoner swap.
Yep.
That would have been really easy way of doing it without all of the Palestinians dying. But nope. Netanyahu, he cares more about killing Palestinians than he does about releasing his hostages.
Oh yeah, he doesn't give a fuck about the hostages. Like we know for a fact they've been briefing against the families of the hostages, basically saying they're Hamas. You know.
Yeah, did you see Benny Gantz left the coalition government?
I did, and I mean he can get in the wood chipper as well in Minecraft. But yeah, hopefully it brings the fucking government down and Netanyahu goes to jail. That would be probably the best outcome for everyone. But we'll see. Yeah, can we get a triple lock on Benjamin Netanyahu's jail, please?
Who says that Labour's plans for net zero would risk blackout.
The triple lock is actually infinite prison time for Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, and Smotrich.
Let's fucking go. Oh.
But Nigel Farage, we'll hear from him shortly, claims to the Express that Reform, his party, are the real opposition now.
You'll be lucky to get one MP. Shut up.
Now. And of course, many of the papers carry the worrying story about rescue teams' search for the missing TV presenter Dr. Michael Mosley, who disappeared while on a Greek island on Wednesday. And of course, there'll be coverage of that across the BBC through the day. But let's, with you three, welcome, turn to the election. It's been a busy old week. And John, I know you've been watching on for some time. You gave money to the Conservatives and backed Boris Johnson. But I know you've seen Keir Starmer too. He's been trying to get your support. Have you made your mind up?
No, not at all yet, no. I think...
Oh, you're a cunt. You're just a horrible cunt.
Well, what's frustrating about this is they bring on this massive rich donor businessman, and instead of holding him and saying, well, hang on a minute, what's your business practices like? What, how are you going to fit in to ensure that you do the best, you put the needs of the country before the needs of your own? They go, oh, you're a massive mega donor who has massive amounts of political influence that's completely undue just because you happen to be a rich fucker. What are you used to donate to the Conservative Party? Is Caesar's thumb going to point a different way? I'm like, these people shouldn't be being given the mainstream political talk show as incredibly rich people to allow to influence public debate on something they have a vested interest in. Yeah. Like, you literally, you get to fund who has access to political power in this country far more than I could, far more than a normal person could, and you're not being scrutinized over this massive conflict of interest. We're talking as though rich people controlling politics from the background through donations just it's normal and fine.
Well, exactly.
No
yeah.
issue.
Look,
no issue.
The question should be: you gave money to Boris Johnson. What did you get back for that?
Yeah.
That would be the question to ask. What was your return of interest on that money?
Yeah. What was your ROI for on this? Like,
yeah, exactly.
it's. But no scrutiny. No, we've not even questioning the idea that rich businessmen might have too much power in our politics.
Well, no, what we should do is then give them a public platform to spout their shit as well. Because when will the rich white man get a voice in this society?
Yeah, finally, the rich white man is speaking. And as Bilderberg points out in chat, like these self-same journalists will absolutely moan and throw their toys out of the pram over the fact that the trade unions have a voice and have political power within the Labour Party. Except, of course, trade unions represent people who work and do jobs that are relevant to society, whereas this person doesn't do anything. The
Tories will go, the union barons that run the Labour Party. And yet this dickhead, they're just like, oh, anyway, so you basically bought and own Boris Johnson. That's cool. Anyway, which way is Caesar going to go this time? Whoa! Fuck me.
I think the one thing that's fairly clear, I'm not going to be a Conservative voter. I think what the Conservative Party...
God almighty, they've even lost the billionaire ghoul vote.
I mean, Labour have been courting them very specifically. Yeah. They love the idea of wealthy businessmen coming to their party, specifically because they don't want to be seen as being the trade union party, because the right-wing kind of rabble of rodents at the top of the party don't like the trade unions and do not want them to be affiliated to the party, don't like being part of a Labour movement because they're just liberal Democrats in red ties, or Conservatives in red ties in a lot of cases. They don't have any affinity with the Labour movement. They're in the Labour Party because it's one of the main two big parties in the UK, and therefore is their only vehicle to political power outside of the Conservative Party.
True. And look, did you see that Unite wouldn't sign off on the Labour Party manifesto? They'll probably still give them fucking money though. Almost certainly.
True, yeah,
which means it's pointless, guys. Like,
yeah, because they're cut.
Either
totally cut.
Grow a backbone or shut the fuck up and just take it like a bitch.
And Rishi did throughout COVID was really, really appalling. There was a huge waste of money, and
so his problem with Rishi Sunak is the one good thing he ever did.
Yep.
Brilliant.
That's literally how these people think. Like, they'd spend all of the state's money.
We should have just actually continued to burn the lives of poor people. My red line went flat for 2 weeks. It was a fucking disgrace. I don't know why he turned into Bernard Manning there, but you get the idea.
But literally out here saying the bad part about Rishi Sunak is that time that he kept everybody's jobs through the furlough scheme and ensured that people got a cost of living payment if they were on state welfare, and it's like, it's terrible. I can't believe he protected people during a pandemic. What I like now, though, is he wants to cut taxes for people like me.
Yeah.
Policies put into place that were not fair and were ridiculously overgenerous in some cases and undergenerous in others. So there's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Overgenerous to billionaires, and then everyone else got fucked. Michelle Mone did very well out of it. I agree. It was very unfair.
Yeah,
Wrong with what he did.
If he actually did properly scrutinise and say, well, the problem is that they were corrupt. They were corrupt in this period. Sure, the furlough scheme was fine. The cost of living payments were necessary. But they were corrupt in handing out the crony COVID contracts. No, he doesn't give a shit about the crony COVID contracts. His mate's got the crony COVID contracts. He's mad about the fact that the regular, Tom and Sheila down the road or whatever, ended up getting some furlough money or maybe more than they expected they would get.
Nope. I don't know why that played.
The Conservative Party and Rishi did throughout COVID was really, really appalling. There was a huge waste of money and policies put into place that were not fair and were ridiculously overgenerous in some cases and undergenerous in others. So there's a lot wrong with what he did. So I was very critical of Rishi right the way through his Chancellor days, and I've seen nothing better since he's been Prime Minister. So I think the Tories have had the day. It's too late for them to recover. So definitely not a Conservative voter, unless they change dramatically in their policies, and that would be mainly to do with energy, because we cannot keep destroying the planet. And Rishi going back from 20...
Okay, this guy's a little bit all over the place. Okay. I'm with him on this. That would be cool.
Yeah.
If they did anything good on that. Nice.
2030 to 2035, I saw as another really negative stance.
But you are still an undecided voter, and there are
I'm
plenty
undecided,
of them.
and I am still there to be won, but I just don't see the Tories coming back from this in terms of what I wish to see.
Okay, well, it's interesting. Pollsters often make the point there are still lots of undecided voters, which is why the parties are working so hard. So let's take a look at what happened this week with who.
But realistically, even if you're an undecided voter, you're not deciding between Tories and X. No one wants to vote for these wankers. They're down at lots of the polls don't even have them at 20. Like they're fucked.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I really do think that a lot of the pollsters are looking at the don't knows and the undecideds, and they're saying, okay, we're just going to even these out between Labour and the Tories. No, I genuinely believe that none of these people are going to go to the Tories at the end of the day. Like, this is not a normal election where absolutely I would bank on loads of these people going back to the Tories in a normal election. Even people like Johnson and Cameron would have got these people flocking back to them. But they just, again, so much media noticing of the Tories has happened. So much media has been covering like all of the failures, 10 years after they've happened, rather than covering them at the time because of the scary jam man was the alternative.
Well, that's
now any.
I was just going to say that's the point. Also, what's not going to motivate them? Because I think if you'd had a genuinely leftist leader, like a Jeremy Corbyn type as the leader of the Labour Party, a lot of the Tories would have been scared to think, well, we can't have this. Whereas they don't look at Keir Starmer and think that he's like a threat to them particularly. Like, they don't like him, they don't want him to be Prime Minister, but he's not really like a leftist that's going to hurt their cause or whatever. So they're not... They don't feel like it's like a life or death situation to vote for the Tories. So they feel like they can put their vote with Nigel Farage or just not vote at all.
Well, exactly, 100%. Like, and obviously Keir Starmer really wants these voters. It's why he's managed to try. They keep banging on about changing the Labour Party. They really want you to know this is not a party of the trade unions anymore. This is explicitly a party of capital, and so you don't have to worry about voting for us anymore if you're somebody from the right. Yeah. That's exactly how they're trying to spin it, because that's true. That's exactly what they are. Literally. Also, thank you for the 100 bits, Cam. Just to add some context, this guy's a high-end property developer. What a surprise. What a surprise this property developer.
Yeah, well, I literally called him a cunt at the start. Yeah, we know. Yeah. Thank you, Sozzle Snake, with 2 gifted subby subs. Much love. And yes, Adnai and Quinine. I'm voting Bernie for PM. Yes! Bernie can still win! Come on!
Right in.
Won the week. Well, he was off, then he was on. Nigel Farage will run as an MP.
Hey! Love it. Although, oh god.
There was another real.
Oh, what the fuck? What?
Everyone should go follow the lady who milkshaked Nigel Farage. She's an OnlyFans model and a Corbyn supporter,
Yeah, she
and
is dope.
that makes her incredibly based.
Yeah, I just want to put out to her, like, chill the fuck out, yeah? You're making everyone else look bad. Just
I mean, if she wants to come on stream for an interview, by all means, would
be
love it.
slightly less based, because you're making us all look like wankers.
Yeah,
by
doing the work of
comparison.
10 people.
Yeah.
On the campaign trail for his troubles. Rishi Sunak missed the huge opportunity to appear alongside other leaders of the free world after he went home early from the D-Day commemorations, leaving Lord Cameron there to hobnob with world leaders in his place on Omaha Beach. It also gave Keir Starmer the chance to look like a Prime Minister
Yeah,
in
exactly. That's what I mean. This is easy politics. You get to stand next to Vladimir Zelensky and look like a statesman and look like you're a political player. And instead he went home to be interviewed by the press. And then because of the bad press he got because of this, the next day he didn't want to talk to the press. You're a fucking clown, Rishi. You're an actual dickhead. You must be trying to lose. You must.
Yeah, literally, it's politics on easy mode.
Yeah.
Simple. Stand
Look,
there,
no, you
look
couldn't buy
dignified,
this.
support the troops.
You couldn't buy this kind of good press. That image, just him there, standing next to Vladimir Zelensky, chatting away at the D-Day thing, perfect. It's literally perfect propaganda. For free. And Rishi Sunak went, now I'll just fly home instead. What? Oh, twat. Absolute twat. And into the bargain made the country look like a bunch of fucking wankers as well. Sent up
He's
fucking
very bad at
unelected
it,
pig
isn't he?
fucker to stand next to the actual leaders. Jesus.
waiting alongside President Zelensky. And in the second of this week's debates,
26 separate tax hikes in the last parliament. About 12 new.
Well, this is, I think Carla Denya's best line wasn't even political. It was just when these two were bitching, and then he went, "Oh, Carla Denya, what do you think?" Well, that was terribly civilised, wasn't it? And everyone just laughed. Yeah, just burn, absolute solid burn.
Taxes
That's
that
rubbish.
Labour are going to bring it. It's
Absolute
not
rubbish.
Student
well, while the
politics.
Tories and Labour
True.
were arguing, the smaller parties had the opportunity to display their wares. So, Amber, you're not in frontline politics anymore, but I know you'll have been watching closely.
Cheers.
Couldn't resist.
What do you think?
That's not true. That's true. She is in frontline politics. She's on the board of Centrica, the people who got paid out money by our government. She's the secret frontline of politics, i.e., on the board of directors of a major corporation in the oil and gas sector, which actually has far more power than anybody ever elected to Parliament ever will have.
Yeah, exactly. They are the front line. Yeah.
The literal frontline of politics, the people with all the money.
They're like, you know, when they say, when governments say we're here to serve, that's who they're there to serve.
Exactly.
Of this week's events.
I thought Angela and Penny both did well. I quite thought that sort of scrapping was honest. They both had their lines to take and their points they wanted to make, and they did it. And it was rather charming. You could see at the end they were like, "Yeah, well, we got through that, didn't we?" So I thought they both did
Yeah,
well.
because
I do
they're
think
all in the
7-1
game together. Yeah, they're all disingenuous cunts who don't actually oppose one another, and they're all part of a secret little club there. And oh, we got through that, didn't we? Ha ha ha. Anyone up for Pims? Like, fuck off.
debate has its challenges to cut through, and I'm not sure the others did really.
And in terms of the overall picture, Matt, what do you make of what's happened in the last week of this campaign?
I think interesting. I just want to pick up on something John said, that I think there's some underlying.
Hang on, is this a glitch in the Matrix? Because they're the same person. They're literally, one of them's got glasses on. That's the only. This is like fucking Superman. The only difference between Clark Kent and Superman is the fucking glasses.
True, and so when boring Clark Kent, when he takes his glasses off, turns into Union Man.
True. Yeah, they're just billionaire, northern, bald, white losers.
No, this is Matt Rack. This is the General Secretary of the Fire Brigades Union.
Oh, is it? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My bad. Well, they look the same anyway.
They do look very similar. But that's why I made the joke. Like, there's the Clark Kent.
Oh, right. Sorry. I was wondering. Yeah. Twitch keeps crashing on my laptop. Well, that's a you thing. We've only crashed once so far.
Yeah. Why do they get Greg Wallace onto Sunday Politics?
No, Greg Wallace is. It's a lovely meal. Yeah. Like he's not a Northerner, please.
Cooking doesn't get tougher than this.
Oh, I love the way. Yeah, they try and make it really, really intense. Like they're just cooking like some
cooking
fish,
show.
mate. It's come on now.
Features here. I think COVID is a big thing. I've spoken at a few events recently, and I think people's recollection of that time and how people feel failed by government and institutions is playing out in people's reflections.
Oh, you met Carla Dinya today, Arizal or Dave in North London. How was she? What event were you at? Where you apparently she's very small. Well, she does look small, to be fair.
She's look quite small. I met a bunch of Green councillors yesterday.
Yeah, how did you? Yeah, you went to Leicester.
Yeah, we did some. We were doing leafleting mostly, which was hard yards, but it's necessary work that needs to get done by somebody.
Absolutely, yeah.
Definitely worth. I mean, we had leaflets on about comparing the Green Party and the Labour and Conservatives' position on Gaza, and there was a lot of households full of Muslims with Palestinian flags on the front that we sent this through the letterbox of. So it was definitely worth doing. Definitely worth. Not a little bit cynical, but I'm just like, that's the dirty face of politics. It was weird.
I don't think it's cynical. I think that's a perfectly reasonable response to the requests and needs of the electorate. That's what politics should be.
Because I remember when the BBC or something, it might have been Sky News. Sky News. It was Sam Coates, I think it was, questioning George Galloway and saying, "Oh, you've got a list of the Muslim candidates in this constituency, then you're going to be deliberately canvassing them." I was like, "Yeah, of course he's done it. What's wrong with it?" I mean, you criticise George Galloway for legitimate reasons all you want, but this is not. This is fine. Like, this is explicitly fine.
He canvassed the people that live in his constituency. Wow.
Yeah, the demographic of people who care a lot about the similar politics that he. Yeah, of course.
You do appear to be criticising him for doing his job, which is a bit weird, actually, as a criticism. Not a great flex. You work at a station, and she passed. Right, because you work at like a train station, and she was clearly busy. Fair enough. Either way, good on her. I think she's done all right, actually. She seems like a genuinely likable person. Which is
student
rare.
politics. Student politics.
She's exactly, yeah, because sometimes students are cool, whereas all the other politicians are garbage.
Well, yeah, I pride myself on people calling me a student politician or engaging in student politics.
I feel a lot younger.
Thank you. Politics when the cynical briefcase wankers hadn't taken control of the discourse. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I dream
politics
of the days
where your soul hasn't fucking crushed and been destroyed, and you're just an empty, hollow husk of a human being, a fucking robot alien space creature. Yeah, apologies if I'm not that.
Yeah, back when I was positive and sincere and thought we could genuinely change the world for the better. What a crazy position that I used to be in. But no, believing that anything can get better ever is student politics.
Yes.
As we approach this, so we will have all sorts of ups and downs, debates and so on, but I think there's a lot more deeper things going on.
It's interesting because Rishi Sunak often talks about COVID as a positive for him. You know, in very, very many occasions, he mentions furlough very quickly as something that people liked about him.
Well, I think they did. I mean, I appreciate
it's one of the few things that he's ever done in his entire life where people didn't despise him for it. Yeah.
Superman.
Literally Superman. Yeah. I mean, they fucking glizzied him up to shit on the BBC. Yes, we know. We saw. You're not journalists.
View on that, but the fact is, for most people, the decisions he made to support people during the COVID pandemic was the right thing to do and allowed them to have enough money to carry on. It was absolutely critical.
John, in terms of what the Tories could do to get you back, you say you'd need to see something completely different, but what would that look like?
Well, it would definitely look like the environment first of all, but the environment coupled with making Britain strong financially.
So I want them to spend lots on green energy whilst also not taxing any rich people at all. Thank you very much.
And what I want to see is a differentiating tax scheme that encourages inward investment in science and technology industries, but especially where the environment's concerned. Because
How
that, in
about
that way...
state? How about state investment? How about we invest using the state? How about we do what China fucking does?
How about you shut the fuck up? All right, I've decided, because I buy the politicians. They are mine. I keep them in my pocket. They are my entire. They are how I run the country. No, we're just going to burn poor people. They are a renewable resource. Fact.
As the environment becomes more and more of an issue, and of course it's a big issue today, but it's nothing compared to what's coming down the road in 10, 20 years' time. And whatever intellectual property we develop now, whatever intellectual products we develop now, will be eminently exportable over the next few years and will really grow Britain's GDP, but also grow the GDP.
I mean, it's not necessarily wrong to look toward trying to make Britain prosperous and all the rest of it. I'm not like a fucking crazy person. But the approach of everything has to be viewed through that prism. The fact that the pound note is the only factor that really matters here. When you're talking about, like, we're trying to save the world as a place for people to live, and but you're just interested in making money out of it or something, like, it's just that's cynical, you know.
It's like GDP as a metric is so fucking like dumb. Like Adrian Ramsey on Laura Coon's book last week was correct to describe it as a blunt instrument, because it doesn't really describe anything. It describes how many transactions happened. Like, again, like, I'll go back to the joke I told last week of, you know, the two economists paying each other to eat each other's shit, but at the end of the day they've both ended up with the same amount of money, so it's cost them both nothing. They've made no money, and they've both eaten each other's shit. But the other one can say to the other, well, at least we've increased GDP by £100. Like, that's how dumb of a measure it is. Like, it's fine as, like, it gives you a broad scale overview, but what about how healthy your society is, what damage you're doing to the environment, how happy people are, how healthy people are? Like, these are metrics that GDP cannot ever cover.
Also, the society will not be healthy if people are eating shit. That is not
True.
That is not good.
GDP per capita, and therefore people's standard of living, and also the jobs will be higher paid. So it's all a virtuous circle, but trying to get any government to understand that seems nigh on impossible.
Well, it's interesting. We'll be hearing from our politicians in...
Yeah, politicians don't ever listen to billionaires like you. I agree. I absolutely understand your frustration, Mr. I bought and paid for the previous Prime Minister.
Just a couple of minutes. Thank you all very much indeed for now. And Matt will be talking about the Labour manifesto as well. You were at the meeting where it was agreed behind closed doors. I'm
Very much behind closed doors.
Sure, you've been sworn to secrecy, but maybe you can give us a few hints. So there is undoubtedly, as we've seen this week, a big challenge to Rishi Sunak and his allies like Mel Stride from the Reform Party. It is profound. How will they handle it? We'll hear from him in a minute. But Nigel Farage joins us from Essex this morning. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning.
Mr. Farage, if you get what you want in this campaign and you grab millions of former Tory voters, you're making it easier for Keir Starmer to get to number 10. Why do you want him to be Prime Minister?
I don't particularly, but I have to say the Conservatives have...
But he's conservative enough that I don't care. Because you'll notice that was not the approach he took when John Blacombe Concretes was leader. He was scared of him becoming Prime Minister.
In a discussion with Concrete Mike on Talk TV, Concrete Mike put this particular question to him directly. Said, by taking votes away from the Tories, you're going to make Keir Starmer Prime... You're going to make Keir Starmer Prime Minister. And Nigel Farage's response is, well, they're both basically the same anyway. There's very little difference between Keir Starmer. He said, it doesn't make any difference to me who's Prime Minister. But if I want to see my politics as part of society in the future, I need to be able to build a platform now whilst the Conservative Party are in the tank, right?
Yep.
We can, 5 more years of Keir Starmer is going to be very little different to 5 years of Rishi Sunak, so why should I fucking care when I actually have change? I want to change things and make things different. In my mind, for the worse, of course. I have my own political opinions, but from his perspective, that's exactly how he should think, and that's exactly how I think about the prospect of 5 years of the Labour Party. It doesn't seem any different to me.
Yep. Why would it matter whether you have the Chancellor from just after David Cameron was Prime Minister or David Cameron in a red rosette? what difference does that actually fundamentally make?
Yep.
Nothing. So, fuck it, I might as well build my far-right coalition. Let's go! You know.
Trust with the country, repeated promises in manifesto after manifesto to reduce net migration to tens of thousands a year, and now they've opened the doors to such a scale. Do you know that 1 in 30 people in this country today has come here in the last 2 years? The numbers are astonishing. The breach of trust is huge, and it's
that will scare that statistic. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but that will scare the shit out of Conservative voters. That will honestly, that line, if he keeps repeating it, will win 1 million votes from the Tories.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And it's their own fault too. It's their own fault.
Exactly. Because they did do this, regardless of what one thinks of immigration. The Tories have brought in huge numbers of people. That's just a fact. Whilst of course kicking out, like, you know, having done the hostile fucking environment shit and kicked out people who should have been allowed to stay here and all the rest of it, and done the fucking Rwanda stuff. So they've been verbally very, very shitty towards migrants, of course. But yeah, they've allowed huge numbers of people in.
Trail.
As well as fucking up the system and allowing for a massive backlog as well, you know.
All of those people that lent their vote to the Conservatives in 2019. And I do believe this should be the immigration election. The exploding population is impacting on housing, on rents, on the health sector.
You've said in every election this needs to be the immigration election. Stop pretending like that's a new thought on your part.
But some Conservatives, Mr Farage, believe what you are doing.
There we go.
What was that, sorry?
What you went off on my end, the thing cut out. But what I was going to say though is that you were talking about the anti-Semitism election, then your mic cut out, so I couldn't hear you. But the thing as well,
anti-Semitism, immigration. He wants to make every election the immigration.
Oh yeah, sorry, I misspoke. Sorry, an immigration election. He wants to make every election an immigration election. You're right. He has basically been trying to do this for the last 10 years or so, last 15, 20 years. He's been desperate to make every election a call about the issue of immigration. And I'm like, of all of the elections, this is like the one where you least want to do it. Like, even after all of the high levels of immigration that, again, Conservative Party pretended they didn't want and then did anyway, everyone is concerned with loads of other things, such as, you know, the cost of living crisis, or the state of the NHS, or what's happening in Palestine, or the housing crisis.
But his voters do care about it. That's the thing. He's not looking for, like, respectable centre ground voters or anything. He's looking to build a right-wing coalition to force the Tories to become more right-wing, or just take over from them. Like, his voters do care. In terms of him getting this thing off the ground, this is probably the best strategy he can provide. I think he's doing an amazing job, and that's terrifying. Yeah, but he is doing a good job of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, by the way, thank you for the raid, Mark Das Red. Do not know your channel. I will see what you're like. But thank you very much. Please refresh your screens. You'll come through the No Justice stream. I talk about UK politics 6 days a week, and I'm here with my co-host Kevin Logan, who's also a socialist and also from the UK. And don't worry, I know we're from the UK, but no matter how much you hate British people, we live with them, so we hate them all.
Exactly, absolutely. And we need to get that in before the football starts and the fucking hooligan twats start destroying German town centres.
Well, I'm looking forward to see what. I'm looking forward to see what happens when the USA eventually play England in the World Cup coming up.
Oh, in the 2020 World Cup, yeah.
They might actually happen because it looks like the USA are going to qualify.
Well, England might not. Fuck me. No result against Scotland. Embarrassing a little bit against Australia. Jesus. Anyway, we'll see.
Also adds up to a betrayal, because the logic of you running in this campaign in the way that you are makes it much easier potentially for.
She's so annoyed. You're fucking up my Tory loving, Nigel. I can't smile and be friendly with Keir Starmer.
Keir Starmer to get to number 10. So I'll ask you again, why do you want him to be the Prime Minister?
Okay. Taking out polling companies like Savanta, who don't even prompt for reform, which is outrageous, opinion the same. If you look at the other polls, in the red wall, Reform are ahead of the Conservatives and are now the challengers to Labour. If you look in Wales, it is now neck and neck between us and the Conservatives. So in the Red Wall, a Conservative vote is a vote to put Labour in. The whole game is changing. This old tired mantra that a vote for this party or that party...
Honestly, I think Piers Morgan fucking calling him out in public might end up with a fascist revolution.
I mean,
look, it's the meme, you know, the tiny domino that falls and then each one gets bigger. And the first one is Piers Morgan is a twat, and then the second one is fascist Farage opens the camps or something, you know. Like, I don't know.
I think the rhetoric again is exactly what we should be doing here on the left as well. This idea of, well, just like, what happened to if you're just going to be splitting the vote? I'm like, well, tough. I'm now ahead in some of these constituencies. If you want to stop splitting the vote, then stand your candidates down. It's just like what's happening in Chingford, where everyone's saying, "Oh, why are you go? Faisal Shaheen she's an IDS enabler. IDS is going to get back in because she's splitting the vote." I'm like, stand the Labour candidate down then.
Yeah.
If you care more about getting the Tories out, or do you care more about the Labour Party's political project? Because I can give a shit about your political project anymore because you're identical to the Conservative Party. So to me, it's well worth standing candidates against you. But if you are somebody whose singular goal is not letting Conservative Party MPs into Parliament, call on the Labour Party to stand down their candidate then. Just because they're an established party doesn't mean they have any more of a right to challenge the Conservatives in Chingford and Wood Green than Faisal Shaheen does. And Reform UK are right in the same way that why should the Conservative Party, continually be given the sole responsibility of being the right-wing representation against the Labour Party, for example, apart from the fact that, the Labour Party is right-wing.
Yeah. When will the Marxist revolution come? I can't wait any longer. The Marxist revolution is next Tuesday. We meet up at 2:30 next to the town hall, and we do a Marxism. Yeah.
If it's at 2:30, should he be at the dentist?
Hey.
I mean, the Marxist revolution comes when we elect a Green Party, and then we do very, very mild social democracy, and that's basically Marxism as far as the UK body politic is concerned.
You will need to go to the dentist, of course, because we will be taking your toothbrush.
Absolutely. Fact. Only state-mandated toothbrushes at all. Do you have a Marxist capitalism?
True. True. Although there was a cracker yesterday. I watched a video called Britain is a Dump, right? It's made by this fucking twat.
I watched it.
Oh, it's awful. Anyway, the phrase Thatcherite socialism, honestly, my brain nearly broke. It's ridiculous.
It's frustrating because I know what they mean when they say that. I know what they mean that during the Thatcher administrations, the state doled out loads of money to people, but that's just neoliberalism, right? Socialism is not when the government spends money.
I don't think he was even saying that, though. Yeah. I think he was literally saying because they didn't repeal the 1947 Town Planning Act, it was socialist Thatcherism or something, and it's just like, you're a fucking idiot, mate. You honestly, this is what no material analysis does to a motherfucker.
Literally, that seems to be like the main theme of my channel, and probably potentially your channel as well. Just viewing people not engaging in material analysis and calling them idiots for not doing so, because it's true.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
On top of that, that it's clear this person's like a Tom Harwood fan, because Tom Harwood bangs on about the Town and Country Planning Act all the fucking time.
Yeah. He's a little cunt, by the way. Fuck him. Sorry, it doesn't really matter. But
helps the other side. And look, back in 2015, when I led UKIP, we took more Labour votes than Conservative votes. So frankly, let's be honest.
Right, but that's because the Labour Party were very unpopular at the time, and the Tories sort of weren't. Your votes will be entirely from the Tory Party this time, I think. That's not necessarily true. There'll probably be some red Wolsey, but most of his electorate now are Tories. That's it. And of course, you got to bear in mind that was pre Brexit referendum, and so you had a lot of the red wall voters, the Sunderland voter type people who were natural Labour voters but wanted to leave the EU.
Yeah,
and then that isn't a factor anymore because we're not in the EU. Yeah.
Exactly. On top of it, you can see what happened to those voters in 2017. They all went back to Labour because Jeremy Corbyn was honouring the Brexit referendum and represented an old school Labour Party that they knew and loved, rather than the anti-industrial Tony Blair professional managerial Labour Party. And then in 2019, the professional managerial wing of the Labour Party decided to try and tank the campaign by wanting to overturn Brexit.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Starmer. I wonder what you got up to after that.
Yeah.
By running the second referendum, and they all abandoned them again.
Yeah. Here's an interesting question from Madcat in the chat. Do you think I should vote for the Marxists who's standing here or stick with the SNP?
At least first past the post, you probably have to stick with the SNP.
Yeah, presumably it's a Labour SNP marginal, so unless the Labour candidate is specifically very left wing, which I doubt, probably stick with the SNP, I imagine.
Yeah.
The election's over. Labour have won already. Whether the majority is 200 or 350 is almost immaterial. The real question here is who is going to provide a voice of opposition in Parliament and in the country to a Starmer government. The Conservatives are incapable of it. They argue more with each other than they do standing up and fighting for their constituents or the country. And I think reform needs to be in the House of Commons. And we've got a 5-year plan.
You're not going to be, so it's not a problem.
Leading up to a general election of 2029. We're dead serious about this. The Conservatives had their chance. They've blown it.
Except that many viewers will remember that in this stage in 2017, Theresa May, a month out, was absolutely miles ahead in the polls. It looked like she was cruising to victory. Mel Stride's already told us, Shabana Mahmood's already told us and reminded everybody not a single vote has been cast. So you are taking voters' decisions for...
Laura. Who did she lose votes to? In 2017. Who did she lose votes to?
Just a generic Labour leader. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Let's not focus on that at all. It's not like that guy had the ability to infuse the election with some hope and dignity and respect, and gave hope to people who had been disenfranchised and got them to vote for him. No. He, whoever he or she or they were, is probably exactly the same as Rishi Sunak. And therefore, that turnaround is possible, apparently, in her fucking eyes.
No, so just in general as well, like even outside of just the misacknowledgement of the existence of Jeremy Corbyn as a leader of the party.
Who's that person? I've never heard that name before. Who is it?
Don't know. Just nobody.
Okay.
But anyway, what's important though is that even if you forget that, there's a difference between an opposition being 20 points behind because people don't know their policies enough just to absorb media spin, to then reading their policies and then coming towards them. There's different than being an incumbent government who've destroyed the country and have engaged in like gaff after gaff after gaff, and then them rising 20 points in the polls because people know them already. You can't be reintroduced to the Conservative Party as an electoral force when they've been in government for 14 years and when the press have finally decided to report on all the fucking bad shit that they've done at the last point possible before an election is taking place, right? These are two completely different scenarios.
Or granted, and claiming that you can be the real opposition. Is that credible?
I tell you what, if you went outside London and you met people in this constituency and others around the country who voted Conservative for the first time in 2019, they're loathing for the Conservative Party as such. There is no chance of them going back. So let's face the facts. I know from a media perspective, you'd love to think that it's undecided. The election is over. The question is who's going to be the opposition. And right now,
the Liberal Democrats.
We're just 2 to 3.
They'll be the opposition.
Yeah. Like, at best, you win 1 seat, maybe 2. And that's going to be a freak turnaround. Like, he's not going to be anything. He's not going to get elected.
I think that I know there's a gigantic Tory lead in this constituency, but I think he's if anything, after all this, he's probably a big enough figure to actually do the turnaround in Clacton. Okay. But I think that there is a chance that they might get 3, like Farage in Clacton, Heiss in Boston and Skegness, and Lee Anderson in Ashfield. And in Ashfield, it's literally only because there's a 4-way split for the votes that they might kind of luck into the first place in that constituency. Anywhere else, I don't think they've got a chance. But 3 is still more than 0. But at the end of the day, what might be a problem for Farage here with this strategy that he's gone for of killing the Conservative Party is that if he does destroy them so badly that they end up in 3rd place and the Liberal Democrats the opposition, we've got a guaranteed 5 years because the Labour coalition for a gigantic majority never going to go away, right? They're not going to have enough infighting with 450 carefully picked Starmerites they've inserted and parachuted into positions to break down before the end of the term that's necessary.
The demarxification, yes.
Yeah, there'll be at least 5 years of an unassailable Labour government being held to account at the dispatch box by Ed Davey. And so, at the very least, right, in that scenario, if that does come to pass, the rhetoric is going to have shifted leftwards. Not by much, because it's going to be a right-wing Labour Party versus the party of austerity.
Well, I'd say
But
it will shift libwards, yes.
Liberal, yeah, it'll be far more liberal. Like, the outward kind of nasty rhetoric will probably go away, and it'll just be Ed Davey talking about how high the debt to GDP ratio is, and you can't trust Labour with the economy, whatever. Like, which is shit. Like, it's shit, and I hate it. But he will end up doing that kind of thing. But at the very least, right, a lot of the kind of, really kind of bottom of the barrel garbage gutter discourse that Farage thrives on will be out of the limelight, at least somewhat.
Yeah.
So I think that there is a kind of a double-edged sword for Nigel Farage pursuing this policy. But it depends. It depends how high they poll after the election.
Well,
if he does become like the de facto polling opposition, he'll still be given time in the media more than is relevant, based upon those polling averages, regardless of whether or not the Lib Dems are getting 60, 70 seats on 10% of the vote. If from or ahead, they'll have to be given airtime. But we shall see. We shall see.
Indeed.
It's a mythical scenario, and we have not had the election yet.
Indeed. The only one that matters is on election day. Yeah, we know. Maureen, but so the person up against the SNP is a Blairite. Oh, well, vote SNP then, Madcat. Yeah, fuck that. Yeah.
You call for £50 billion worth of spending cuts. So which public services would you get rid of?
Well, here's the point. The Bank of England is paying vast amounts of interest on their QE borrowing. Yes, I know it's very technical for a Sunday morning. I'm doing a press conference tomorrow in which I'll lay out how we can save 35 billion before we even start. I'll unveil all of this tomorrow, but yes, you're right.
So his plan for a country that's been hollowed out by cuts is more cuts.
So it's worth pointing out his description there of the fact that our government pays interest on bonds owned by the Bank of England, i.e. owned by itself. That's stupid, and we should get rid of it. Like, Nigel Farage is 100% correct, and he should do that, and the Labour Party should do that. Any party should do that. The fact that we've ever done that is completely ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. What it might do is affect mortgage products potentially, but there's other fiscal ways of fixing those mortgage products, or like financial products that might have higher interest rates, or you could indeed just force the Bank of England to lower the base rate in response. But either way, there's a lot of stuff in the background. But broadly, the point that he's making, that we could save ourselves, £30 billion or whatever instantly by stopping paying interest on bonds held by the Bank of England. That's true. That's 100% true. Every government could and should do that immediately. Phil from A Different Bias released a good video, actually, which I recommend people going and viewing, about how it's silly that we already do this and the pitfalls of what happens if you do or don't do it. But basically, if we do that, it makes the banks mad, because it makes their products worth less overall, broadly.
Well, that's worth it in of itself, then.
Yeah, but on top of that, Reform UK are also promising billions and billions of pounds worth of cuts. Their contract with the people states they want to shave 5% off every single government budget.
Oh, well, they can
which in the case of the NHS is fucking huge.
Yeah, then that just collapses basically every government department. Yeah, thanks.
We want to raise the level at which people start paying tax to £20,000 a year. Why? It'll take 7 million people out of the tax system, mass simplification, a huge incentive for those not in work to go to work, and that's what I'm going to lay out tomorrow morning.
But I think viewers would like to know this morning, your party's already saying you'll cut £50 billion of public spending, so which public services would you get rid of?
Yeah. Well, it's not about getting rid of public services, it's about making them more efficient. It's about the national health...
Jesus Christ, every one of them. They're all the same. They're all the same. We can do it through efficiency. No, you can't.
Stop it.
Exactly, yeah, it's frustrating. And this is literally what Rachel Reeves and Wes Streeting have been saying, and Darren Jones, the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury. Specifically, they've all said we want to find efficiency savings and reform them to make them better. It's like, again, David Cameron tried this for 6 years. So did Theresa May and Philip Hammond. They wanted to find efficiency savings. Did they find any efficiency savings? No. They reduced service provision because there were no efficiency savings to begin with.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They all want to have their cake and eat it. You can't pretend that if you want to save money, there aren't going to be cuts. You can't have it. If you want better services, you have to fucking pay for them as well. Like, Yeah, you can't have your cake and eat it, guys. Stop fucking lying to people. It's so dishonest.
Service, not swallowing up huge amounts of money in diversity training and things like this. We want to live in a country where everybody
As if diversity training makes up any real percentage of the fucking budget. You're a clown.
Well, again,
mate.
it's somebody pointed it out. I think it was like 500 million or something they spent on diversity and things like that, and so it worked out like 0.0002% of the budget. And I was just like, okay, nothing. But it's a big bugbear for these people. They think that it's money that's being spent that shouldn't be spent, not because they think that it inflates the budget. It's because they don't like the idea of DEI. And you know what? You can dislike DEI all you want, but currently on the books we have equalities laws in place. The reason why companies are so steadfast in ensuring that they have people who do these things in the background is so they don't want to get fucking sued.
Yeah.
They don't want to have to go in front of fucking magistrates to have to defend the fact that they failed on equality. And so they spend relatively small amounts of money. I mean, like 0.002% of the NHS budget is a lot of money in abstract. It's a lot of money nominally, but it's not like a huge amount in terms of how much we spend on the NHS to ensure that we don't get caught up by breaching Equality Act, for example. That's money worth spending, and businesses don't spend money for no reason. They know that it saves them money too. Nigel Farage is very big on wanting to turn the NHS into something that operates like a business, and yeah, businesses don't want to get sued fucking either, Nigel. It's really it's really not difficult.
Yeah.
treated equally. And by the way, raising the tax threshold to £20,000 will be a lot of civil servants that we can get rid of.
But even the highest figures for spend.
Okay, who does their jobs then? Who does their jobs, Nigel? Again, there aren't that
all
many.
These right wingers.
Do you think that there are lots and lots of people being employed that don't do anything? Is that your actual opinion?
Right wingers believe this about everything. They believe it a lot about the government, but they think about it in basically every situation. Oh, we're going to shape a bunch of people off here. Case in point, Elon Musk and Twitter, right?
Yeah.
They looked at the number of people employed by Twitter and thought, surely it can't take this many people to run Twitter. We'll just get rid of loads of these people, and they can, if they want to leave, if they want to stay, they'll take a pay cut or work longer hours or whatever. And they got rid of loads of different things, not just people who are working a bunch of rules they had in the background. And Sean, the YouTuber, pointed this out on Twitter and saying they thought that Twitter were doing all these things because they were won by woke people wanting to impose an ideology, when actually they were owned by business people who wanted to make money. And so they slowly rolled back on all of these things. And of course, Twitter keeps crashing, it keeps the app keeps failing, it keeps going down, the features fail all of the time. It's a buggy mess. And that's because a bunch of the people that Elon Musk fired because he thought that they were unnecessary waste and people who were stealing a living, who were being used as inefficiently, were actually there for a really good reason in the first place.
And of course, he got rid of my free speech, which is just a disgrace.
He did.
He murdered my opinion. Literally.
He did indeed do that. But again, Nigel Farage, who spent no time, he spent zero time in government. He's never been elected in government ever in his fucking life. Doesn't know how any of it works, really and truly. But he just believes, because these right wingers have just this kind of like kind of religious belief in this idea that the private sector is more efficient than the public sector.
Yeah.
They assume, based on that single heuristic, that, well, if I get into government, I could find loads of these people to cut from the civil service because there must be some inefficiencies somewhere. And it turns out it's just not true.
Yeah.
Just not true.
Diversity training, which you cite there, Conservative Way Forward, the group have looked at this, and they say the most that you could get back would be 427 million, which out of cuts of 50 billion, that's a drop in the ocean.
Well, okay.
Exactly.
All right, I'll go on. The inheritance tax threshold should be raised to 2 million. We will go on with...
That's also a cut.
Yeah, but why, Nigel? Why is that the case?
Turns out his mates who've...
That doesn't seem like a meritocracy to me at that point, mate.
No, all of his mates who spend money funding Reform UK PLC, because remember, it's not a party, it's a company,
it's a
right?
PLC.
All of the rich people who fund it don't want to pay inheritance tax.
Crazy.
How strange.
Other areas like that, mass simplification of the tax system, which will bring
that's just a cut. That's less tax coming in. So that's 50 billion plus the thing you've just said. That makes it worse, Nigel.
That makes it exactly. I think and this is a really interesting thing. They always we're going to make tax simpler. We're going to make welfare simpler. Yeah, worse. You mean worse, right?
Yeah, they tried this with the fucking single benefit. Yeah,
more cracks for people to fall through.
Yeah.
us enormous savings.
In terms of other things that you might want to do, you said on Friday, and you've mentioned this morning, you'd like to reform the NHS and you'd like to have a French model. Now, in France, there are upfront costs.
Well, we all want a French model, don't we, lads? Hey, hey, hey! That's a sexism joke. You're very welcome.
That people have to pay. They get some of it back, but not all of it. Is that what you would like to see in this country, where people have to pay up front for their healthcare?
Let's be clear. We want healthcare to be free at the point of delivery. That was the founding principle of the National Health Service. What we're not...
Wow, what a fucking lefty. What a lefty lunatic fucking communist. Are you suggesting healthcare Marxism, Nigel?
Having a debate about is this. We've gone up from just a few years ago spending 7.5% of our national cake to 11% of the national cake on health. And guess what?
What's his thing with the national cake? Just say budget, you cunt. Why has it got to be a cake? You're not talking to fucking 6-year-olds.
I mean, he thinks that they are. He thinks that he is talking to 6-year-olds.
We're spending 6% of the cake. How do you spend a cake?
Yeah, that's how these people think of the electorate, as fucking economically illiterate dunderheads.
Baked goods are not legal tender, you wanker. Shut up.
Wish they were.
No, I enjoy eating them. And then I'd feel really bad, like, this is expensive. Oh, this is a very expensive cake now. I could be using this to buy more cake.
It's even further simplification of the household budget narrative. It's a really good point in chat specifically, because cakes, you can't grow a cake, right? You can't issue cake bonds. It makes it really easy to try and make people think that there is a certain pot of money and the only thing you can do is cut taxes or increase taxes to be able to change how you spend. No bond issuance, no money printing, no quantitative easing, no ways that you can of changing.
No seizing the means of production and putting them in the hands of the workers. No.
Because exactly, it's just here is a pie. If there is a cake, and you have to cut slices out of the cake, and that's all it is. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so fucking hungry now.
Well, that's what Liz Truss kept talking about, pie.
I want pie and cake now. Oh, I'm a fat bastard.
Delivery has got worse, waiting lists have gone up. This model is not working. The French system of mutualisation is producing far better returns, whether it's stroke, cancer or heart disease. What I'm saying is, let's have a proper, open debate about this, because frankly, everyone knows that the NHS is not working the way it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, because of neoliberal ghouls like you.
Yeah, Lansley reforms, privatisation. Like, again, it was the best healthcare service in the world in 2010. I wonder what's happened between then and now, Nigel.
The
model hasn't changed.
You got what you wanted, is what happened.
The principle of free at the point of use hasn't changed, but there's plenty of other changes that have been made that made it worse.
True.
I want to ask you about the Prime Minister's early exit from the D-Day commemorations this week. After that, you said that he wasn't patriotic, and you said that Rishi Sunak didn't understand our history and our culture. What did you mean by that?
Yeah.
Okay. If he's going to be truthful, the next thing he says is going to be like TOS levels racism. But he's not truthful, so it won't.
No.
Absolutely right. He couldn't make a mistake over D-Day. He should have known in his heart that it was right to be there.
In his heart! Yeah, literally, in his brown heart, he just intrinsically... the brown people just don't understand our culture. He couldn't possibly know. It's just a part of them. They're not, they're not white enough. That's the problem, isn't it, Nigel? Nigel. Prick.
I was there. I've been raising money for some weeks to send veterans back to Normandy. The vast majority of people...
Yeah, but you were celebrating the other side, weren't you? You were commiserating about D-Day. You were like, no, don't worry, lads. We'll get it again next time, okay? Me and Marine, we're going to sort it out. It'll be fine.
Britain felt this commemoration was important and the last opportunity to honour the remnants that are still alive. And by the way, I know what your question's leading at.
And adorably, did you see the 100-year-old veteran that got married to a 96-year-old at Normandy? Amazing. It was the most fucking heart-rendering story. It was beautiful. Honestly, I felt feelings for the first time in a long time. I didn't like it.
40% of our contribution in World War I and World War II came from the Commonwealth. He is utterly disconnected by class, by privilege.
Yeah, like the army of South Rhodesia. Yeah. Is that what you mean, Nigel? No? Okay.
From how the ordinary folk in this country feel. He revealed that, I think, spectacularly when he left Normandy early. And out there now, there are millions and millions of people who were Conservative voters, traditional Conservative voters, not the Red Wallers, who are now thinking, do we go on supporting the Conservatives or do we support reform? And this is going to be, I think, the acid test of this election.
But, Mr Farage, when you say our culture, I think many of our...
He did very well dodging that part, didn't he? He didn't actually answer the question at all. He's actually not a bad politician. He's just an awful human. Which often, unfortunately, goes hand in hand. Sadly. Are you there? Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, some kind of response would be nice.
So somebody had sent me an article about what happens when you stop paying interest on bonds held by the Bank of England, and one of the sentences broke my brain, and I'm still very confused by it.
Well, by all means, let's hear it. What was it?
Okay, so implementing the proposal would involve what would amount to a default on the indemnity that the Treasury has provided to the Bank of England in connection with quantitative easing. The interest that would be withheld is currently paid by the BOE to the commercial banks on reserve balances, whose aggregate amount has been determined by the bank, by the BOE, which has created the balances to pay for gilt-edged securities purchased in its quantitative easing program. The gilts are held in an asset purchase facility, a BOE subsidiary which is financed by a loan from the BOE proper. The APF is indemnified against losses by HM Treasury, which also gets the benefit of any profits it has already received, 120 billion. I'm very confused.
Was that the schematics for a plane? What the fuck was that? I don't know what that sentence was. Yeah, okay. This is what they do. Bullshit baffles brains. Just write. Have you tried to read the way in which they write legislation? The legalese they have to go through. It's gibberish. It's like a secret code that they teach you at lawyers' school to earn billions. Like, it's mad.
Our viewers might imagine that you are trying, not very subtly, to emphasise the Prime Minister's immigrant heritage.
Yeah. I just made the point, 40% of our contribution in 2 wars came from the Commonwealth. Clearly, Mr Sunak doesn't understand that. And what an insult to the Americans. You know, that took place.
Well, not just the Americans, to everyone, to the Canadians, the French, not the Germans. Let's not go into it. Anyway, to everyone, to all of those people, the Anzac forces, all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If anything, right? It shows more disrespect to them. He showed up for the English people and fucked off for everybody else.
Yeah, like and he didn't even want to turn up to that. He didn't even want to do that. Like, motherfucker, you're asking people to go into the army for a year, and you can't even do your fucking service for an afternoon. Behave yourself.
Above Omaha Beach, where the Americans suffered so grievously, he has made the biggest mistake of his political career. If it wasn't an election campaign...
And that's fucking saying something. Jesus Christ.
There'd be a leadership challenge against him this week. The man is not fit to lead the country.
I honestly think he should resign. The fact that he didn't want to even turn up to the British one, that's enough. That's enough. You can't be. You cannot be the leader of the country, even for the short amount of time you have left. You're a garbage. I know it's not going to happen. They're not going to get rid of him in the middle of a general election. But that's the cynical nature of politics. Unfortunately, you are not fit to be in office.
I agree. Absolutely. I mean, the longer he stays on, the more the Tories have a chance of being annihilated forever. So we shall see.
True. I mean, literally anyone they replaced him with, even at short notice, would have to do a better job, surely.
Absolutely. Jeremy Corbyn's wife just quote tweeted me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, one of my video mocking Angela Rayner for pretending that they couldn't remove the 2-child benefit.
Friends in high places.
Yeah,
love it. Look. If you want to come on, if you and your husband want to come on for a chat, we're all good. Papa.
I mean, Curtis managed to get an interview with the OG, so we'll see.
Exactly, that was fucking dope, by the way. That was amazing.
Did you watch his Owen Jones interview as well today?
Oh my god, you interviewed Owen Jones? Oh,
Yeah.
this is fucking hot. No, I didn't.
It's really the Owen Jones dishes so much dirt on the Labour right.
love
It's
it.
so fun. Well
Oh,
worth
I'll
watching.
watch that. I'll give that a watch tomorrow, yeah. Fuck yes. But that's content for tomorrow, lads. Let's go.
Sunday Times today is carrying a story about one of your aides and colleagues, George Cottrell, who has a conviction for wire fraud in the America and has been named in another criminal investigation in Montenegro. Do you want him by your side on the campaign trail?
She's really ass blasted about the fact that he's fucking the Tories, isn't she? She's really actually legitimately seething.
Yeah.
You are
for
ruining
sure,
our
for sure.
two-party loving, Nigel.
No, my lobby connections are gone forever.
Look, how can I be a shill for the Tory party if they don't exist anymore, Nigel?
Always stand by my friends. And
I haven't seen this level of vitriol since Corbyn was around. Jesus Christ,
Yeah, literally.
she's furious.
Speaking of that, did you see when she said, right, that she said in a podcast like last week, where she said, I remember somebody texted me in 2015 about Corbyn winning the leadership election from the Labour right, saying they're going to destroy him piece by piece. And I was just like, oh, so you didn't think this was worth reporting on at the time then? You didn't think it was worth reporting on that there was going to be an attempt into... And there was a coup in 2016. There was a chicken coup in 2016 as well, right? Would you not have been worth reporting, Laura, at the time at which they deliberately tried to internally remove him against the wishes of the membership? Would you think it might be worth reporting at some point there, someone who deliberately texted you that this was their plan all along, Laura? Was this not fucking part of the resume of journalism? Oh,
No,
of course not
no,
journalism.
no, no.
You're a propagandist at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. You know, she's a client journalist for the establishment. Why would she do anything like, you know, report the subversion of the will of the Labour Party membership? Why would she do that? It's not like that's a massively consequential piece of information that the Fourth Estate really ought to be bringing to the attention of the public. No. What we need is Jeremy Corbyn to like die or something, or get murdered, or something like that.
There is a thing called Christian forgiveness. If people get convicted of something or do something wrong, well, they have another chance in life.
Okay, dickhead. If you're gonna start quoting like do Bible shit, the whole turn the other cheek, and the that you do unto the least of my brethren, that you do unto me. I don't know, your rhetoric about pushing people back into the fucking sea really comports with the Jewish socialist Jesus of Nazareth.
Absolutely. Dan Aos in chat asks, is the UK in a geopolitical decline, not in social terms, but purely geopolitical? Yes, absolutely. We gave up our big role on the diplomatic stage globally by leaving the European Union.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And we've basically been America's cuckboy bitch for the last 20 years, regardless. I mean, we have been for a long time, kind of more broadly, but now really and truly, both of our party leaders never ever take a line outside of what the American State Department line is, and nobody listens to or cares what we do in a global the rest of Europe laughs at us. All of the Commonwealth states don't want to try and remove themselves from any connection to us.
Yeah.
And the United States treats us like we're their child. We so much of the right wing in this country.
Yeah, but it's like an illegitimate child. It's not a favourite son or anything.
No, exactly. Like a weird sees them on weekends type deal.
Yeah, exactly.
But so much of, I think, that the rage that you get from a lot of kind of backbone conservatives, like nationalist conservatives in this country, a lot of the rage that they feel that's led them towards this kind of vitriolic position is actually just born out of the fact that the country itself, the international reputation of our country is it's embarrassing.
It's in the tank. It's absolutely.
It's in the tank.
And it was before. I mean, it's just symbolic, really. The fact that the leader didn't even want to turn up to the D-Day thing. It's humiliating. Europe laughs at us, calls us fucking Brexit land, right?
Well, exactly.
America literally just. I mean, we're like with the look of their little lapdog. It's pathetic. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But
Australia just bent us over the table and are now flooding us with fucking lamb. Like it's madness. It's madness.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Kev. Yeah, and the thing is that this kind of impotent rage at the idea that we're not a geopolitical superstar anymore is what keeps these people up at night a lot of the time, and this international kind of denigration of us being, the somebody who colonized like 2/3 of the world or some stupid amount like that, like invading basically everywhere and becoming this global superpower, and we're not anywhere close to that anymore. Well, this is why they hate the conservatives. They think that they've not just destroyed the political project of conservatism, but they've destroyed like the what's the word I'm looking for? I guess the prestige of Britain as a country on the world stage.
And honestly, the more I think about it, our massive expenditure on armed forces and especially on nuclear weaponry is like the national equivalent of a middle class family where the income earner loses their job and they still have to try and keep up their middle class lifestyle, but on like credit cards that they can't afford to pay back. We're basically now.
We're the old guy from the Full Monty. That's exactly who we are.
We're the boss from the Full Monty.
Going down the job centre every day, but still buying presents for the wife while she doesn't know.
Exactly, just pretending that everything's fine and that we're still, rich, and we're not. Why are we pretending to swing our big dick around? We don't. Everyone knows. Everyone's seen everyone's called the emperor having no clothes. So let's stop pretending now. Let's save ourselves 200 billion quid and go back to being just, a set of rainy rocks in the North Atlantic, which is all we ever should have been in the first place.
And if you want to know exactly how much of America's lapdog and a cuckboy bitch we are, in the nuclear weapons that we spend all this money on are still controlled by the Americans.
Yeah,
they still control our nuclear warheads.
That's the annoying thing when they say, like, Jeremy, would you nuke 200 squillion people? Would you kill all of those people, Jeremy? The real answer should have been, I don't know. I'd have to ring up Washington first.
Yeah, they have control over.
We need Washington say so. So we don't even have an independent nuclear deterrent. It's not independent. It's a joke.
No.
To go on and prove themselves.
Mr. Farage, thank you very much indeed for joining us from Clacton Pier, I think, where you are standing for election. And there is, of course, a list of all the other candidates who are standing in Clacton.
Let's have a look. Yeah, I said this at the time, but the Labour candidate being called Yovan Owusu Nepal, that's going to get very racist. Like Nigel Farage is going to say some dumb shit about that. Guarantee it.
Information about every candidate who's standing in this whole general election is available for you on the BBC website. So wherever you live, you can check out what is going on. Now, we just have some important and sad breaking news to bring you this morning. There is very little detail so far, but we can tell you that a body has been found in the search for the TV and radio presenter Michael Mosley. That's according to a rescue worker in Greece who has spoken this morning to the BBC. The 67-year-old
that's a good
vanished
point,
on Wednesday
actually.
while he was on holiday.
One of the list of the people on the ballot for Clacton, the guy called Tony Mack, was the original PPC for the Reform Party who got usurped by Nigel on a whim because, of course, Nigel Farage has de facto dictatorial control over the direction of Reform UK because he's the majority shareholder of Reform PLC.
Oh,
so
nice.
This Tony Mack guy got mad.
And is now running as an MD.
He literally...
it's good to see that at least one person who was involved with Reform isn't just a little cockboy who's going to take that shit.
Well, yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, I think he's from the local area, right? I'm assuming most of the candidates are people from the local area who wanted to at least run for a party with shitty political opinions, but at the very least that he wants to be able to support because if it's in his area, been replaced by somebody who's has no relationship with Clacton at all.
And literally there's quotes of him saying, I don't want to spend my Friday nights in Clacton. Literally. Nigel Farage doesn't want to be there. I wonder if that will play into the thing at all.
He's literally done a Pfizer Shaheen because they've tried to parachute their favoured candidate over somebody who actually knows the local people. And again, absolutely, I would, he should run as an independent. He absolutely should. Why the fuck should the residents of Clacton take having a parachuted candidate?
This carpet-bagging fucking racist frog,
yeah. At least in the Labour Party, they have the excuse of saying, well, actually, the worst part here is that our members chose somebody who was a local to the area, and you're usurping them through dictatorial means at the top of the party. But of course, there is no membership process for the Reform UK to help choose a candidate. Nigel's in charge. He chooses the candidates. He chooses when they stay and when they go. I'm like, well, yeah, you signed up to that when you became a Reform Party candidate, that at any point, the majority shareholder could come in and tell you to fuck off because they have all of the power.
Yep.
You signed up for this dictatorship, mate, not me.
Indeed. Hello, Boy Meets Minnie. Everyone going full of Boy Meets Minnie.
Indeed. Welcome to my chat
I
as well.
will bring down the wrath of Khan. I don't even fucking watch Star Trek. I don't know what I'm talking about.
On the Greek island of Symi. You can read more about the story as it's developing on our website. Dr. Mosley was, of course, known for his TV programmes and Radio 4's Just One Thing podcast, and we were lucky to have him on one occasion in the studio here, and of course we will be following that closely throughout the day. Now, let's then talk to Mel Stride, the Work and Pensions Secretary, who was listening to Mr. Farage during that interview. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
I just want to ask you first of all about Mr. Farage's remarks about Rishi Sunak not understanding our culture. Now, his defence of that was that Rishi Sunak doesn't understand the contribution from the Commonwealth and he doesn't understand the contribution from Brits in World War II. But what did you think of him saying that, and what did you think of his defence of those remarks?
So I think they were deeply regrettable comments. I'm not entirely sure he addressed the question that you put to him as to what he meant by that. He then went on to make various comments.
So you noticed how he dodged the question? I presume you won't be doing that in this interview then, Mr. Stride. You're fully cognizant of that. Yeah, okay. Look, you know what? A good analytical skill. Clearly he's got media training. I appreciate that. Let's see if he uses it for good or evil.
About those that had fought very gallantly and selflessly in the Second World War as part of the Allied effort. But I think deeply regrettable is how I would, because I think they are suggesting things. I'm not going to go any further than that because I don't want to stoke this whole thing up, but it just seems to me that that's an ill-advised thing to have said.
But you clearly have reservations about it, and I don't want to, lead you to somewhere you're not willing to go.
Again, this is the same thing I mentioned the other day when we were on. The Tory party can't attack Nigel Farage, especially his racism, because they know that's the voter they're trying to pull back from him. So if
it is really funny.
He can't come out and say the thing he said was racist. It's a racist dog whistle. Fuck that guy. Because the people they want are the people who would be taken in by a racist dog whistle.
Well, it's the funny dance that every single party has to do, because that kind of voter is potentially a swing voter. It's potentially part of the swing demographic of kind of either kind of comfortable-ish middle class people, or people who are from a generation who grew up when the Thatcher administration gave them a lot of new wealth through right to buy or through demutualisation or through the sell-off of public services, whilst they also had pretty good private pensions, which were usually defined benefit schemes that paid them out long into their retirement, and also get a triple locked state pension on top of that. So they're comfortable, let's put it that way. They're people who are more concerned with immigration, for example, than the cost of living crisis, which is, when you look at the polling, the only demographic that exists in that metric is Reform UK. Every other party, cost of living and NHS, more important than immigration. Only Reform UK voters care more about immigration than the cost of living. Shows you the kind of economic demographic they belong to. And again, I'm not saying they're super rich or they're incredibly wealthy or well off, but pensioners who got to buy their council house, which has increased massively in value over the last 30 years, who got a defined benefit pension and a triple locked pension, are much better off than the average working person is in this country.
Yeah.
So that's why they can afford to not care about cost of living as much as immigration. But that also makes them a swing voter. That makes them a swing voter because most working people, as we've seen from every election, vote Labour. Even in the 2019 drubbing, like the plurality of working age people in every income demographic below 100,000 voted Labour more than Conservative.
Yeah.
So it's clear that the chase vote is for the retired as a demographic, because those are the ones, especially the Labour Party, want to get them off the Conservatives. The Conservatives want to keep them, and Reform UK think that they can usurp the Conservatives amongst the demographic, and they're doing a pretty good job. So that's why there's just this weird chicanery where Nigel Farage will say something outlandish, and then Labour and the Conservatives will just shy away from criticising it, because all they'll do by taking a firm stance away from Nigel Farage is lose his demographic completely.
Yeah.
But it is clearly something that you do feel concerned about.
I feel very uncomfortable with that. Look, we've had in our country, and it's a source of great personal pride, as somebody who supported the Prime Minister, wanted him to be the leader of our party and our Prime Minister, that I've sat around a cabinet table that's the most diverse in history. And I'm very proud of the fact that we have a British Asian who is right at the top of our government. And we can debate what he's done and what he hasn't done and what he's going to do and so on. We'll no doubt come on to that. But I think his involvement in government has been characterised by outstanding public service. And I'm very proud of that.
Okay.
Shut the fuck up.
Let's talk then about some of those policies. Now, it's the Conservatives so far in this campaign who've been very busy announcing policy after policy after policy. But whether it's national service or ending what you would call the war on motorists, they're clearly designed to appeal to voters who have deserted you or may be about to desert you. And they are clearly the kind of voters that Reform UK is also going after. If you look at how the polls have been moving, isn't Nigel Farage beating you at your own game?
So I think you put the very sensible point to Nigel Farage, which is basically a vote for reform is a vote for Labour. It's going to help get Keir Starmer.
Yes, she did repeat the same fucking bullshit that Tory HQ wanted her to. Yeah, correct.
It's number 10.
It's not
what we've got to concentrate on, the leadership we've got to show, is to set out the clear choice that there is in this general election.
But I'm
so
asking
on the one
you that
hand,
you're announcing policies designed to appeal to those voters, and so far, Reform is actually gaining.
We have policies, and we're doing things that appeal to voters right across the piece. So we've already, for example, cut national insurance by 1/3. That's a tax cut for 29 million working people, worth £900 for an average earner. Those are important things that we're doing that have practical impacts on people's lives. Now, if we take the group that you're talking about, I think older voters who are equally very important to us, the triple lock plus is something that we will bring in, which will make sure that those pensioners who are already benefiting from the triple lock itself will not be dragged into paying income tax. Now, Labour, Laura, have said that they will not come forward with a triple lock plus, which will mean millions of pensioners being brought into income tax as a consequence of a Labour government.
Well, as you raise that, I just want to clarify for our viewers, you have, as a government, made many more pensioners pay income tax for the first time because you have frozen the levels at which people start to...
Wow, a journalism, well done.
Again, it's the election season, so they're just forced. They have been forced now to actually bother scrutinising everybody. Yeah, because again, like for some reason, like they keep being allowed to spout this line about a £900 tax cut. I'm like, first of all, that's just an average household. And by average, I mean like £50,000 earners. And I'm just like, well, I don't give a shit about them, to be honest, mate.
Yep.
Don't give a shit about people very comfortable with that amount of money. And then on top of that, like that all gets minimised by fiscal drag to the point at which, by the end of the projections for the next few years, the only demographics that aren't going to be worse off in terms of tax payments is going to be specifically that demographic, so 35k to 50k. Everyone above that and below that, so the lowest earners are still going to be paying more in tax as a proportion of their income than otherwise they would be. Like, that's how much of a non-tax cut it is they're giving people. But, crucially, they don't give a shit about people who are under 25k, not their voting demographic, right? The 35k, 50k, 60k, whatever have you, you know, the aspirational class, whatever it is, they're ideal Conservative Party swing voters. Poor people, though, fuck them, they're going to vote Labour anyway.
Yep.
And your plan now is to undo some of the damage you've already done to their wallets. So to be completely clear, that is what that plan is. You may want to put it forward at the election, but that is what that plan is.
Well, what actually the triple lock has done, of course, is increased pensions at a much greater rate than would otherwise have been the case.
£3,700 you're giving them a tax cut when actually you're giving them a bit of money back on something you'd already taken from them.
But it is a tax cut because in the absence of doing it, they will be paying more tax under Labour.
We've clarified that point, and our viewers are smart people. They know that taxes are at a record high in this country. Our viewers are smart people, and they listen carefully.
That's a separate point. Please don't raise that. Please don't raise that we can't be trusted with actually giving people lower taxes. That's crazy.
They watch what politicians have been up to, and they've been watching also your policies. So let's have a look at some of the things that you've announced, because you've announced quite a lot of spending, which is a bit topsy-turvy in this election. Labour are saying they won't spend much. You're saying you'll spend loads. At child benefit charge, 1.3 billion.
That's not true. Labour have said they're going to build loads of prisons. Brilliant. Thanks.
And again, it's this conspiracy of silence that the guy from the IFS was talking about all the time, saying, well, you haven't got any money to spend because you both signed up to this fiscal rule of debt falling as a percentage of GDP by a certain period. And if you want to hit that target based on current projections, you're going to have to find £20 billion of public sector cuts, or as Stephen Flynn would call it, with rolled R's, lots of them for you there to do an impression of Kev, should you wish to do so, for public sector cuts.
There are no R's there. What? Public
sector.
Sector cuts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There are all these public sector cuts. Is that they won't talk about it because they are just bullshitting. They're completely bullshitting. And then on top of that, they want to spend a bunch of this money on what's been talked about here as well. And Labour keep talking about all this money we're going to be spending on prisons, which is going to come from fiscal expansion because it's capital investment. But even then, they'll talk about all these extra police officers they're going to hire, all these new units for dealing with sexual assault cases, for example. And I'm like, why is nobody questioning where you're going to find the money when it's not like the handouts for the people who they deem to be unworthy, like for the two-child benefit cap, for example?
That was the thing during the Seven-Way debate. The fucking thing that infuriated me, when they started off talking about defence spending, and they all went, "Yeah, we're going to spend 200 gazillion quid on nuclear weapons." The moderators just didn't question that. And then every other spending commitment that any fucker made about like schools or hospitals or whatever, oh, where are you finding the money for that from? Where are you getting the money for that from? Has that been costed? The magic money tree, everybody. It moves in mysterious and always very right-wing ways.
That's what's frustrating. Obviously, my rant today was about people not taking the Green Party policy seriously because they fall outside the Overton window, so we're liable to get mocked for it. But what's interesting as well is that a bunch of the big spending commitments the Greens have put forward is money invested in the NHS and into social care. And of course, fair enough, they want to do like more spending on doctors' pay, for example, which is a good thing. That will involve taxation because that's day-to-day spending. But when it's capital investment, you can borrow for that. It's capital investment in assets for the state, which you can take away as an asset from the overall debt burden because you've gained a valuable thing that you've added to the national assets owned by the public sector. So you can do that with fiscal expansion. You can borrow for that. So essentially, the fact that they've had to talk about doing a wealth tax and doing a capital gains tax increase isn't necessarily to fund the policy, because it's coming from borrowing, most of these things, is to make it look like they've balanced the books, household budget style, to meet this stupid dance that our journalist sphere makes us do for no fucking reason. Yeah. Again, because as people will criticize me in my chat and in my comment section for implying that taxation funds government spending, and you're right, it doesn't fund government spending. All government spending comes from newly generated money, and taxation is a way of taking that money out of the economy to cool inflation. You're absolutely right. That's 100% the case. But when it talks about this funding for policies thing, like, I'm only talking about it in this fashion because that's how parties have to present their policies to make themselves look electable. So even under that heuristic, under that method for describing a policy, the Greens are doing fine. And people still call their plans crackpot or wild and wonderful, as weird and wonderful is what Christian Guru Murthy called it, or student politics as the fucking briefcase wankers on Twitter call it. I'm like, no, it's not only is it a costed policy, again, it's capital investment policy doesn't even need to fucking come from taxable receipts. This dance is so stupid, and I'm continually having it with people who really don't know a fucking thing about macroeconomics as well. It's really, really tilting.
Yeah.
The triple lot plus you've just mentioned, 2.4 billion, 2.5 billion for your national service plans.
Yeah.
And you say it's all going to come from cracking down on tax avoidance.
Yeah.
Well, when Labour comes out with that as a way of spending things, the Tories say, oh, you're leaving a black hole. You never get that amount of money back.
Well, compare our record. There's something called the tax gap, which is the difference in what we should be bringing in through tax and what we actually do.
And
under
you did
Labour,
lots of work on it at the
indeed,
Treasury.
but the point is, judges
You've been in power.
So under Labour,
Why have you not been trying to get this tax before 14 fucking years? What the hell have you been doing this whole time?
Destroying things.
True, true.
We're
Oh,
in
but Rory
25,
Stewart says that
26,
Conservatives
that
don't like
figure.
destroying things. They're not evil. Oh,
Yeah, but Rory Stewart is a twat.
true.
Was up around 7+%. Under ourselves, it was down at about 4-point-something%. So the evidence is we are much better at doing this. Now, you're right.
You have
Labour
been
are
in charge
saying
for
they'll
14
get.
years. I'm
Labour
not
are saying
sure
they'll
that-
get 5 billion, so we're saying 6. So we're in a similar ballpark. But we have the track record to deliver, and all of those
No, you don't.
No, you
measures that
don't.
you've just
No.
shown there, Laura.
Like the
most
fact
of
that
them
you are the
covered by
ones who've
that.
been in government that's allowed the gap between taxable amounts and how much is actually taxed. Like it's under your watch that this gap has been created. You literally have the opposite point. No, you are the ones who've caused this tax gap. You have shitty record on this, which is why people want you fucking gone.
True. By the way, if someone wants to be very generous in chat, Ripshaft is in ad hell. You can save them. You can. And you can do
True.
so on No Justice's channel as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Gifted subs, memberships, bits, super chats, all welcome for you to do. I'm not going to do the whole shill because I'm lazy. But you can do all of those things if you really want to.
You can.
At 6+ billion in 2029.
But if you're so great at
Yeah.
cracking down on tax avoidance and getting money back for hard-working people, why haven't you done it already?
Well, we
True.
have been doing it, and there's more that we can do. So, for example, in my area of welfare, we've saved £7.7 billion over measures that we brought in over this Parliament. We cut.
I don't want you
fraud
to take
and error
money
within
away
the
from
welfare
people who are fucking poor. I don't want you to take money away from people who are disabled. I don't want you to take money away from people who are too sick to work because of your fucking messing up of the NHS. I want you to take money away from rich people who have far too much money already at a time in which wealth inequality has never been worse and we have more billionaires than we've ever had. And your response to why haven't you been tacking down on tax avoidance amongst the super rich is, well, we've been taking money away from disabled people. Fuck you, massive prick.
Yeah, that is.
Sorry, I'm not.
That is
you're-
pretty evil. Yeah.
No, these people, I fucking hate these bastards, hate these absolute stone cold wankers. I don't know if that's like a bland opinion, just to call these people cunts, but like, no, fuck it. I'm at my wit's end with these kind of people. When you ask them about something really important like taxing the rich, and they go, "Well, we've killed disabled people," as if that's somehow like a proud, like.
Yeah, the fact that they're not
achievement?
ashamed of that, the fact that they're happy to come out there as if that's a good thing that people should vote for them about, like, fuck you. Actually,
like
go
something-
fuck yourself.
Like, it's not high-level political analysis, but this guy is it's just this fucking scum. They're scum. Like, literal, actual scum, these people. Like, I hold them in total contempt. I do not recognise their humanity. They're rodents to me. They're slugs. They're vermin. That's all they will ever be to me when you say things like this.
system within benefits by about 10% last year, and we can go still further.
next
so
time,
we're
right?
putting legislation
Bill.
in.
And next time, I'll tell you what I really think.
Yes.
Has gone up
legislation in to
and
give
up and up.
DWP the same kind of powers to clamp down on avoidance and evasion and benefit fraud that HMRC had, for example. So those things will have a significant impact.
You mentioned there, though, changes that you would like to make to welfare, and you are announcing this morning some extra money for talking therapies to help people get back to work, and you're also re-emphasising a lot of other changes that you want to make to the welfare system. But where's the evidence that these changes will save anything like the £12 billion that you claim it will? Because if you look at the lines and the graphs of welfare payments and the numbers of welfare claimants under your time in charge as successive Conservative administrations, the lines go one way. They go up and up and up. So where's the evidence what you're announcing now will make a blind
up and
bit
up
of
and up
difference?
is not sustainable, and that's something we're going to deal with, and that's the point. So if you...
But you've had 14 years and it hasn't. Like, you haven't dealt with it. Ugh, you're a clown. An evil clown.
You held the case load
You
for
are
those of
Pennywise.
working age who are getting some kind of health and disability element to their benefits. That's a cost at the moment of £69 billion.
Nice.
That is forecast. Well, that's forecast to rise to 90 billion, and that's a clear number there. 90 billion. It's a 21 billion increase. If we just held the level of the caseload, it would actually be 14 billion less than the forecast. If we got the caseload back to where it was pre-pandemic, it would be about 34 billion lower than the forecast. We're saying 12 billion lower than the forecast in 5 years' time is eminently achievable with the reforms that we're bringing in. You mentioned the additional mental health support, because a lot of the issue
the
with
reform-
younger people.
Camera, just a random bit of camera has just appeared on the screen. This is I want to hear no fucking complaints about the technical quality of my streams ever again.
So let's talk about, they said, the reforms that we've brought in. Yeah, the Reform UK party are going to be brought in to replace you.
True.
Particular with mental health problems. So over 500,000 additional talking therapies in the NHS, mental health and welfare hubs across the country, 150 of those, a mental health team for every single primary, secondary and further educational college in the country. Those are things that can move the dial. And one of the big reforms that I've brought in is to change the gateway into some of these benefits. The work capability assessment that the OBR says already will mean 440,000, almost 500,000 fewer people on those long-term benefits as a result of our reforms.
But that's not because they don't deserve that benefit. That's because you're cunts who don't want to give them the money.
This is genuinely fucking demonic.
Yeah,
Genuinely demonic.
It's
All
bullshit,
these people would have got help for their disability, but now that we subcontract that, now we've gotten rid of trying to get them to a position where we could get them on those particular benefits. Now they don't get anything, they don't get anything at all, and they're more likely to die. Well done. Turns out, right, how about we raise interest rates and kill all the poor was literally not, there wasn't a meme, wasn't a joke from David Mitchell. That's just been conservative policy.
That is just the thing they're going to do now, yeah. Again, they're so evil that it's difficult to satirise them. It's difficult to think of a thing that's so evil they wouldn't do it to poor people.
Yeah.
You know.
The public expects and the taxpayer expects a sustainable system. It has to be fair to those that need support, but
and it isn't. It demonstrably is not.
You have made it less
investigated by international authorities for abuses of human rights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
That happened on your watch, mate.
I mean, literally, I think disabled groups have come out and saying that it's been like an existential crisis, like a total crisis and humanitarian catastrophe for disabled people in this country because of the cut. And you want to cut them further. Again, these people are fucking vermin. Like, again, I do not recognise their humanity. They are subhuman to me. I just don't know how much more I can say about how disgusting I find these people.
Can you stop sitting on the fucking fence? Can you give us an opinion?
I know, right?
What's going on here? Fucking shitlib over here, both sides in it. Jesus.
Equally, it must be fair to the taxpayer, and it must be sustainable if the public are going to have confidence in our welfare
And I'm sure
system.
that welfare will be an issue that we'll come back to later in the campaign.
Yeah.
We've been listening very carefully to you this morning. Some of your colleagues, though, are feeling very despondent, and some Conservative candidates I've been speaking to.
Don't worry, we've got speaking therapies for them now. It'll be fine.
In the last few days feel very, very bleak about the prospect, not least because of the Prime Minister's decision to leave the D-Day commemorations. And I have to say to you, some of our viewers just could not believe this.
I can't believe it. Every time it gets said, I keep thinking, the Prime Minister did what? What? It's so incomprehensible. It doesn't make fucking sense. It feels like a line from a nonsense poem or something. It's just gibberish.
So it's like I tell you what it is. It's literally like something from the thick of it.
It really is. Armando Iannucci's got his head in his hands, thinking, the script I've written is shit by comparison. I can't.
Yeah,
like, it's
satire
not
is
gonna.
dead.
No one's gonna laugh at this because it's nowhere near as funny as the actual reality of the world we live in now.
True. Also, but to be fair, Armando Iannucci is flying high on enabling all of this stuff, and then crying about how bad child poverty is in this country, like he didn't get exactly what he wanted.
Okay, Jesus, is he vermin as well? Is he?
I mean, no, he's not vermin. He's just an idiot. He's just a fucking, oh, no, I can't vote Labour because of Brexit, and therefore we ended up with all of these dead children. So I mean, at the end of the day, you had a choice. You had a choice between.
Oh, that's savage. Oh, that's brutal. He had
a choice.
Literally bound his hands behind him and then fucking bullet at the base of the neck. That was
absolutely.
fucking.
Yes, true. I went full IDF.
You really did. You buried him outside a hospital. It's amazing.
I mean, so at the end of the day, he tweeted loads of things about child poverty up to 2014. 2015 happened. He posted about child poverty once to attack Corbyn for some reason. 2019 happens. Election lost. Immediately tweets about child poverty all of the time once Boris Johnson is in power. He just immediately forgot that child poverty was a problem between the moment that Jeremy Corbyn was elected leader and Brexit happened. until Boris Johnson became Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Like, these people are charlatans. Again, these people are total charlatans because
Well,
again,
they're
like,
comfortable middle class
Brexit
fuckers.
for a brief moment they found a political thing worth caring about, and it was whether or not that they got visa-free travel to their cottage in the south of France. That really affected them, so they cared a lot. Their performative sadness over the real issues of child poverty and of the plight of working people in this country took a back burner to all of that, and they forgot about it until the nasty Brexit man was Prime Minister, but the nasty Brexit jam man was gone forever, and suddenly sensible Mr. Haircut had come along, who wants to keep hard Brexit, by the way. Keir Starmer does.
Make Brexit work. Make Brexit work, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He wants to make Brexit work, it's true, and enabled hard Brexit to happen, and now they've just forgotten because he has the good vibes, and now they want to talk about how bad child poverty is again.
Yeah, but have you considered the vibes are pretty good? So, checkmate.
Yeah.
Told us the offence caused to veterans was real and unnecessary, but the total disregard for his responsibility to the country was exposed in his apology. I returned home before the international leaders event.
Also, I love his the nonsense of let's not politicise this. I'm just the Prime Minister that didn't go to an event. That's all. I'm just the Prime Minister in the middle of an election campaign. Can we not do politics now, please? Actually. Like, what the fuck are you talking? Literally, if this issue at this moment cannot be politicised, then politics literally doesn't mean anything. It isn't a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Is your campaign going as planned?
So on the specific point of D-Day, the Prime Minister has not run away from this. He
did run away from it, that was the problem. You've fucked that up, mate. You've literally bollocksed it right up at the start. Fantastic.
Put his hands up. He has recognised a mistake and he has apologised unequivocally. Actually, he uses the words "I am sorry." He feels it very deeply, and I know that because I know him quite well, and I know how patriotic he was. He, of course, attended the events in Portsmouth. He attended the British-led events in Normandy, but he did not attend.
He had to be forced to, but yes, he did technically turn up to that one. Okay.
It's a national event in Normandy, and he accepts that's a mistake.
How he could have made that
but
judgment.
Can I say
that's the thing? It doesn't make sense. How nobody in his team went, don't be a wanker. What the fuck are you talking about? You're not going to go to the thing. Like, Biden's 900 years old and he's flown here. Like, you could fucking swim there, mate. Behave yourself, will ya? Fucking hell. It's just balmy.
Yeah.
Just to go on, because I think this is really important, because it goes to the character of the Prime Minister. This is a man who did stand up for us.
Even the German turned up, and he's there celebrating an owl. Like,
yeah, he's there commemorating the loss.
Like, yeah, like I bet you would. As a world leader, you would have a dig, wouldn't you? Oh, you're right, Olaf. Here to celebrate another fat owl, are you, mate? That's how you getting on? Yeah, like you would. You absolutely would. And you know what? I'd respect it. It's not great decorum, but it's fucking excellent shitposting.
As Chancellor during COVID, because he cared about people's living standards, protecting jobs, their livelihoods, and so on. We've got inflation down because he cares, and cost of living payments and so on, about people's welfare under those conditions. And as it comes to veterans, he has had in his cabinet Johnny Mercer as a representative.
He employed one of them. Look, he doesn't hate veterans. Some of his cabinet members are veterans. What the fuck is
It's very funny. He doesn't like veterans enough to let their military to let their military warrant cards be valid ID at the polling booth.
No,
as Johnny Mercer fucking found out.
Yeah, that's true. He hasn't done anything about the homelessness crisis amongst veterans or anything like that. No.
He has done. You know what, Kevin? Don't say that. He's done plenty about the homeless crisis for veterans. He's made it fucking worse.
Yeah, no. To be fair, that is the one growth industry in the UK is homelessness. Yeah. Fact.
Yeah.
We are the leading providers of homeless people in Europe. You're very welcome, world.
Veterans right at the highest level.
That's the Brexit we voted for, people. Yes!
And we are now going to be bringing in legislation to enshrine the kind of support that we're giving veterans on health, on housing and welfare, for example. And all of that is happening because he cares deeply about those issues.
OK, Mel Stride, Work and Pensions Secretary. It's been great to have you with us in the studio for the first time this morning. Thanks so much indeed for your time. And remember, you can let us know what you think, as ever. You can email kunsberg@bbc.co.uk, or if you're social media inclined, you can use the hashtag BBC Laura Kay, and you can watch what's happening on the website as the day unfolds. The headlines will be there, and of course the latest...
Why do they make her walk across wooden floors with clumpy shoes every week? It's so silly.
They put this ident up so that you can't see her walking back to this...
Exactly, but I can fucking hear her like an elephant.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, you've not thought this through, have you?
No. Either don't get her to walk places, or have her wear slippers. Or, well, not slippers, but like, you know, slip-on
Flats.
shoes. Yeah. Not like a big fucking pair of like bunny slippers. That would be hilarious. Though. I'd respect it.
I absolutely would. Early Sunday morning when they film this shit, I would absolutely turn up with just like big Shrek slippers or something. They have this like weird face, like leering at the camera.
Exactly. Like I've got, look, I'm not wearing proper shoes today. I went out on the lash last night. I am fucking hanging. All right. I've got my slippers on. I've got my gym jams. Let's fucking interview.
This news on that sad discovery in Greece of the body of the TV presenter, Dr. Michael Mosley. Now then, Amber, you know what it's like to be a politician in a sticky moment.
I do.
Yeah, do you remember when you were Home Secretary for 5 minutes and you got kicked out because you're a shithouse who lied to everyone? Do you remember?
Or when
remember that, Amber?
Or when the public laughed at you when you said that we should judge you on your record.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that was our greatest hour. True.
Do you think Mel Stride and his colleagues will be able to pull things around? Because things do look very bleak for the Conservatives, don't they?
They do look very difficult, and I think that Mel handled that incredibly well. It's been a very difficult few weeks, and there's only one thing I do agree with Nigel about, which is that you just have to look at the polls. It's clearly going to be a Labour victory. And I think that a lot of Conservatives and Conservative voters are saying we need a strong opposition. Don't let them have a landslide. Make sure there's a strong opposition and we can be the ones
Again, I think even that's beyond the pay. I don't think you can even achieve that at this point. It's gone so badly. Like the peak of this campaign for the Tories is literally drowned little boy in Downing Street announcing it as Steve Bray flexes on him with a boombox. That might be the high point.
I think I'm going to say this for first and last. I broadly agree with Amber Rudd. Having a strong opposition is actually important. It's good for democracy to have a strong government and a strong opposition. But it turns out, unfortunately, you don't get to have a strong opposition when the singular party capable of forming one at this point is universally despised and has an ideology that's been shat through the fan and is completely without merit at all in the public's eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, we need a strong opposition, but, I mean, you made it impossible for that to happen this time. That's on you.
Yep.
Do that. So vote for the Conservative candidate you know.
But that's interesting you say that because you were in the cabinet during that huge terror.
Although, to be fair, outside of either a hung parliament or a small majority, neither of which is going to happen, the best result we can hope for is that the Lib Debs become the opposition, and then at least there's less pressure from the right on the Labour Party. They're not going to become like revolutionary socialists or anything, but some of the more excessive bullshit that they'd engage in if they had to face whoever leads the Tory party after this at PMQs every week instead of Ed Davey with his fucking pointless liberal bullshit. Like, that's better, I think, than having the Tories there, even if regardless it's going to be a very weak opposition.
But it's almost certainly, as I've mentioned this on stream before, that if Ed Davey is the leader of the opposition, you better fucking believe that he's not going to be talking about why Labour haven't fixed child poverty or anything. He's going to be talking about, Labour have increased the debt to GDP ratio slightly, so look, you can't trust them with the economy. And I'm just like, you have the one chance to shift the dynamic of the conversation leftward in this country by attacking them from the left, which they've done throughout this general election campaign. When they feel like they need to be a serious party, because they'll be quote unquote acting like adults in the room, unquote, that when they're leader of the opposition, you better believe they're going to start pandering towards fucking Middle England voters by talking about
we saw what these cunts did as soon as they got the opportunity in the coalition government.
Yep.
They literally fed poor people and disabled people into the mincing machine for a 5p bag tax. They're fucking garbage.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck them kids. Basically, was their policy.
Yeah, exactly. Oh well, we got a ministerial car, and Nick Clegg and David Cameron got to give each other a hand shandy in the fucking Rose Garden. Brilliant.
Around time in 2017 when things completely changed in the course of a few weeks, but you'd think that is just not possible.
It doesn't feel like that. I mean, it feels like that. The 2017, when you're absolutely right, we went from sort of something like 17 points ahead down to neck and neck. That was about the campaign. And the campaign that Labour are leading at the moment appears to be very strong. There's one other thing I would say, having listened to the interview with Nigel Farage, is that in politics it is very easy to make announcements. It is all about the delivery. And Nigel Farage goes around making these extraordinary announcements, and he has no idea how to deliver. And the example...
To be fair, that's Brexit all over. Just make up any old claim, it doesn't matter. You're not the ones going to have to implement it. 600 squillion for the NHS on the side of a bus. Let's go.
And Nigel Farage has always been somebody on the outside of politics trying to tell people on the inside of politics how to do the inside of politics, which I find quite funny. Zeodos can chat, by the way, if they didn't do the coalition, would it have been a Labour-led Rainbow one, or was a rerun election, was it? I mean, there either could have been a Labour Rainbow coalition or just a Labour minority government asking for confidence and supply from people on policy per policy, which I think would have been fine. Like, not like, I mean, they might have fought on a bunch of like the cuts they wanted to do, because Gordon Brown did have cuts in his manifesto, but I think broadly, like, the Liberal Democrats and the Greens and the SDLP and Plaid Cymru and the SNP would all have been very happy giving confidence and supply to a bunch of kind of milk toast post-crisis policies in a continuation as such.
Yeah.
But it would have been, I think, a minority Labour government probably could have survived. But then, of course, what would also could have happened theoretically is there might not have been a Labour minority government. There might have been a Tory minority government, which might have collapsed very quickly because they wouldn't be able to get a Queen's speech through if the Queen at that point had asked them to form the government in the case of no coalition. And in that case, almost certainly would have been a rerun election. And if the Tories ran on, all the other parties were obstructing this from government, a rerun election probably would have put them into a closer to majority territory. So I don't know what would have happened.
It depends. It's all hypothetical history, alternative history, but it depends. Let's say that government had come in and last 3 months. If they do bad things during those 3 months, either Brown or whoever led Labour Party at that point could turn around and say, see, the Tories haven't changed, they're a bunch of wankers, and might have been able to cobble together some kind of coalition after that second election. It's, again, alternative history and stuff, but like, the Lib Dems shouldn't have, and I said this at the time, they shouldn't have sold out their largely left-wing, anti-Iraq war, anti-austerity voters for a 5p bag tax and a fucking alternative vote election that was never going to get passed. Like, they sold so much down the river for so little return and fucked themselves. And Nick Clegg, honestly, if it weren't for terms of service, I would say some things about Nick Clegg. But terms of service are there, so I'll just say I don't like Nick Clegg.
I mean, if you want to get that out of your system, I recommend watching him losing his seat, staring at the floor, very sad. It is incredibly cathartic.
Well, I regularly masturbate to it. Yes,
it's true, absolutely.
It's one of the sexiest things that's happened in modern times. Yeah.
An example of that I would give is that the whole Brexit campaign was about immigration. Vote for Brexit so we can curtail immigration. On and on it went.
Yeah, I said during the Brexit referendum debates, stop talking about economics. We know that's like the important point for the fucking, because the Leave side don't have an economic argument, but the people voting for this don't give a fuck about the economics. Tell them how they don't care about the potential for the economic ruination, because you're essentially telling people who have nothing, no stake in the current system, to vote for the status quo. They're not going to do that. Stop doing the fucking, in a change election, stop trying to be the continuity candidate. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And Nigel Farage just went, ooh, mystery box, let's go. And people went, fuck it, yeah. How can mystery box be worse than the current situation?
And actually, immigration has continued to increase 8 years after we voted. It's not about making policy statements, it's about delivery. And that's why people need to vote for MPs who can actually do that or hold the people giving delivery to account.
Just before I bring Matt in, I just want to check, are you going to vote Conservative?
Absolutely. I always vote Conservative, but particularly because I have a very good local MP who I want to make sure, who's Conservative, is re-elected to hold the Labour government to account.
I just thought I had to check.
And so I've
Matt,
got a
you've got
voice to
real twinkle.
Centrica in government.
Woo! Well, to be fair, that's also if the Labour Party get in, so, like, it's, you know.
I mean, that is also true, yeah. But,
Okay.
you know, I mean, at least at the very least, she wants to, she has the contacts for Centrica. Again, just want to make it very clear to people, she is one of the directors, on the board of directors at Centrica, the gas company that was given loads of public money during the energy crisis to protect their profits rather than cut bills. I hope you all know that.
Okay, but like, the Tory client journalist isn't going to ask that question. They're not going to raise
No,
anything.
indeed.
They didn't even ask the... Look, she literally pointed out, oh, so you bought Boris Johnson, and just accepted that as if that's a normal thing to do. So she's not going to ask about a private company employing a person. No, it'd be crazy.
In your
I
eye
won't
this
be
morning.
voting Conservative.
There we go. That's a big scoop. Headline: Union boss won't be voting Tory. Matt, what
Not
do you
a
make
boss.
of the campaign?
He's
so
a
far?
leader. Fucking hell.
Union Baron, with his foot on the neck of John Bull.
Union overlord. Union king.
The
What other
Union,
ridiculous names?
the Union Beelzebub stalking over Britannia.
How about, yeah, because like it's so tilting, because again, these people are elected. They are elected representatives.
Whereas
for
the
their
guy
union.
she literally said, you bought and paid for Boris Johnson, is just, oh, he's a business leader, entrepreneur, wealth creator.
Yeah. Such crazy framing.
It's wild.
Yeah, it seems a certain inevitability to it that Labour will win, and the question of how big that majority will be. But I don't think we should judge until, as people said earlier, until people have voted. So a lot can happen in the next few weeks.
So then on what Labour is putting forward. So I know you're sworn to secrecy about the actual manifesto, but we do know that one of your union colleagues, Sharon Graham, the leader of Unite, didn't endorse the manifesto. And it's fair to say not everybody on the left flank of the Labour Party is, cock-a-hoop about everything.
The Labour Party doesn't have a left flank. They don't
Not
exist
anymore.
anymore. That's not a thing. Literally, even fucking Diane Abbott, they had to be, like, shamed nationally for days just to allow her to stand.
I think it's worth pointing out as well, like, just how much people kicking off and attacking Labour, like, viscerally attacking Labour in the press, getting time to talk about it, posting about it, making it the discourse of the day. That was so important to get them to U-turn on Diane Abbott.
Yeah.
If it hadn't kicked up a fuss, if we hadn't made it the story for days and days and days, they would have done it to more people.
Yeah, okay.
They would have done it to Dawn. They would have done it to Dawn Butler. They would have done it to John McDonnell. They would have done it to Apsana Begum and Olivia Blake and all of these. They would have done it to everybody they possibly could have done, unless we made them out to be disgusting monsters in the press, because they absolutely are disgusting monsters, and they should have been held account for it.
Yeah.
Thing that Keir Starmer is planning to do. So what's your assessment?
Well, I'm from the left wing of the Labour Party, and look, I'm going to respect the manifesto process. We're sworn to secrecy. That will be published in due course. I suppose I'm less. To me, it's about the point Amber made about delivery. I think what's published in the manifesto is clearly very important, and there has been a debate around that, and there will be an ongoing debate. I think one of the things that we've said as trade unions is we will be, after an election, making sure that Labour delivers on the elements that we're particularly interested in, which is around workers' rights, trade union rights, and so on. And we know there will be a debate around that, and there'll be pressure from other forces, media, business interests, and so on. That's inevitable. Our job as trade unionists is to make sure that we put our case on behalf of 6 million trade unionists as a whole, and on behalf of the Labour-affiliated unions in particular.
It's so bad that we've only got 6 million trade union members in that's what, less than 10% of the population.
Like, even I think what's crazy is
Fucking
even
hell.
after the kind of the new resurgence of trade unionism in this country, the rail strikes, the nurses strikes,
Yep.
the doctors strikes,
The demonstrable benefits of being a trade union member shown right to your fucking face every day.
and it was still dropping even after that. Like, barristers went on strike. I remember the P&O ferries debacle.
Yeah.
Like, we absolutely needed to have a real big resurgence of trade unionism and young people joining. Like, 9% of under 25s in this country are members of a trade union. That's pathetic, right? and actually, I should do a segment. I should really talk about this on my YouTube channel. So, Jane, my camera's died and it won't charge for some reason, which is really tilting. Because I really want to put a clip on TikTok, try and get it to go viral. Look, we're all sick of Labour. We're all sick of the Labour Party. We think that they're terrible. And sure, you can vote however you want. I would tell you to vote Green come the election. But politics does not stop when the election is over.
Yeah.
It's not time. We don't go back to brunch after we elect Keir Starmer, for example. There is fighting to be done on the ground, in the Commons, to direct policy within the way in which we discuss politics after the election is over, because there will be more things that we have to talk about later. And the absolute best way that you can get engaged politically is by joining a fucking trade union.
Exactly.
Join a trade union, direct policy, protect yourself at work, have access to trade union benefits, and be part of a movement. You can get access to credit unions, you get access to loads of other things that you can do amongst your membership.
Legal representation as well, yeah.
Legal representation in disciplinary meetings at work, loads of things that you can do, even if you don't have like a collective bargaining agreement, which is of course like the gold standard of union membership. Tell your friends to join you, tell your workmates to join a trade union so that you can go towards those things that would protect you at work, even if the government is hostile to good deals for working people. Because if you have a trade union bargaining agreement, unless they destroy trade unions as a concept, you can protect yourself regardless.
Yep.
And this is really important because we all think the Labour government's going to suck, and it will suck. So you have to protect yourself, and the government won't protect you.
Yep.
And you can't do that on your own. You have to do it collectively.
Exactly.
And so one thing that will help you is to join a trade union, because again, 9% of under 25s are trade union members, and that is why we are continually getting fucked over by governments, because we don't stand together and demand change.
Exactly, yeah. And trade unions are consistently one of the few bulwarks against the overweening power of capital. Consistently, in every country, they're one of the few forces that through thick and thin fight the good fight on your fucking behalf. They're honestly a godsend.
Yep.
And for Keir Starmer if he manages to win.
No, and I don't think he expects that, with all due respect.
John, listening to Nigel Farage and Niall Stride this morning, what went through your mind?
Oh gosh, have we got all day? I think, first of all, I think a lot of what Nigel Farage says really hits the spot. I think he's a great orator. Whether he's an operator or not and can deliver, that's another matter. But with the Reform Party, I've got two major problems. One is that they are, I think climate deniers is maybe too strong.
Why is that too strong? They literally are climate deniers. They literally think that there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, Richard Tice engaged in climate denial on Question Time. It was a really great moment where he literally does climate denial live on camera, and Carla Denyer rolls her eyes when he says it. It's very funny.
Yeah.
But they're very much about oil and gas, and that's going to be catastrophic for the future. And the second point is...
Centrica bitch is going to be up in arms. What's going on there?
That Nigel himself is a big Trump supporter, and I can't sort of see any way of supporting somebody that supports somebody who I view to be immoral, unethical, and of course now proven criminal.
Exactly. Look, he's too obvious with his corruption. He's exactly like me, except he got caught, and that's too much.
Well, at the end of the day, right? If if you're a business owner who wants to have links to government to benefit yourself financially, you want your government to be as legitimate as possible. You want your government to be involved, to be as electorally powerful by appealing to loads of people. So trying to get in bed with somebody who's like outwardly as fucking toxic as somebody like Farage is not what you want. What you want is somebody who is very, very inoffensive, who does what you want when it comes to things like fiscal policy. Who's exactly like that? Oh, it's Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, isn't it?
Yes, Sir Keith, yeah.
No boats rocking in sight.
Yeah, or no small boats either, eh? Yeah, this motherfucker, I hate business people like this. Like there's ever been a billionaire who earned their money honestly and ethically. That's not possible. You can't earn £1 billion that way. You have to fuck over people and do illegal shit constantly.
Or you have to extract people's surplus labour value.
Yeah, a billion quid's worth at least. Yeah, mad.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, literally, any profit that you make is profit stolen of workers' wages.
Exactly. I mean, in that fucking "Is Britain a Dump" video thing where he's going on about wages have been flat. If they'd continue to grow, blah blah blah, and he showed the graph, and I'm sure all of those numbers are absolutely true. But I just wanted to scream at him like, motherfucker, where has that difference gone? That gap between actual wage growth and where it should be, that money hasn't disappeared. Productivity has continued to fucking grow. Where has it gone? It's gone into pockets of this fucking wanker and his mates. That's where. Oh, and again, lack of material analysis. It's just like, oh, well, if wages just increase a bit, it'll be fine. No, they're still stealing your fucking money.
You just to grow the economy. Just grow
the cake. Grow the cake.
That's it. At the end of the day, right, there are consequences when you get rid of trade union bargaining rights and you engage in supply-side labour market reform. Yeah, people's wages go down if they can't bargain for them. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
So that bothers me. In terms of politicians in general, the problem is they sort of electioneer with the public by almost rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. You know, and somebody needs to grab a plate and fix the leak. And the
okay, but who made us into the Titanic, mate? You literally wanted Boris Johnson, you prat. Like, you're the neoliberal that made us into the Titanic.
leak is very, very simple. The leak is that we have to grow GDP per capita. We have to grow people's income and at the same time support the environment. And that's why I launched Cordwell Strong Britain, which is a whole range of points of how to do that.
And you think that
green
that is the opportunity that they're all missing?
Green capitalism.
Interesting. So you're a tough judge there, John, in the corner on all the parties. We've got another political party left to go, the SNP. So maybe we'll see if you give them any decent marks. But we're first of all going to take a look at the overall picture, because everything that's going on at the moment is about trying to influence what you will do in the privacy of the polling booth in 25 days' time. And Professor John Curtis, the nation's favourite number cruncher, is keeping an eye on.
Hey, they're going back to the crypt.
60 seconds on
Let's
Sunday.
go.
Movement at last, but not in the direction the Conservatives were hoping. Every poll conducted since Monday's dramatic announcement that Nigel Farage was to return as Reform's leader has recorded a rise in Reform support, on average by 3 points. And every single poll has recorded a fall in Conservative support, on average by 2 points. Now, as many as 1 in 4 2019 Tory voters are saying they will back reform, up from 1 in 5 last week. Meanwhile, at least 3 in 5 Tory voters disapprove of Mr. Sunak's decision to leave the D-Day commemorations early. But it is too early to be sure whether that row has done further damage to the Conservatives' poll rating. But one bright spot for Mr. Sunak is that Labour support has fallen back a bit too, reversing progress they made.
A whole percent. A whole percent.
Wow, they might only get a 243 seat majority now.
Earlier in the campaign.
John Curtis, well, a 21-point lead in the polls is not to be sniffed at for the Labour Party.
Yeah, but it was
And
22%, so checkmate.
So there's a poll that's just been put out now from today from Delta Poll, which shows Labour 25 points ahead. The Tories only on 21%.
That's a quarter of the total electorate. That's mental.
Yeah. I was looking back at the polling from. I was looking back at the polling from the 97 election because I'm a UK political commentator. Therefore, I live entirely through the world of the 1997 election. But in those polls, I think the lowest of any poll the Tories ever got was 26%. As in terms of their vote share, never got lower than 26%. Most had them around 29, 30, which is close to where they ended up. It's like 32%.
Yeah.
Like, you look at the polls here, 21, 20, 24, 25, 22, 19, 20, 19, 22, 23, 19. I think they might, after this fucking D-Day moment, if this becomes central to the campaign, or if that happened later in the campaign, it would have been super fucking for them, but it's happened far enough in that people will remember it when they go into the polling booth. I think they might end up on like less than 20% of the vote if reforms start making gains. That's mental. That's mental stuff. Sure. We've only had 2 polls that have been done after the D-Day bit, which was this Delta poll and one from We Think, both showing the Tory on 21 and 20%. So I think that we'll see some more polls coming out the day from Monday, Tuesday, which will all be polling. It's all being done after the D-Day thing, and it might. There's going to be some funny reading, I bet you.
That's just John Curtis doing his thing there. That's just reporting on the election. It's fine. It's perfectly normal. Anyway.
Yeah, Labour did fall off hard going into 97, whereas Labour are only increasing their lead in the polls as time goes on.
Yeah, again, not because they're popular or they're putting good policies forward, but because the Tories are literally leaving D-Day celebrations and stuff. Like, they're just wank.
Be coming on Thursday.
Honestly, I didn't think I'd live to see a worse campaign than 2017 Theresa May, but we are seeing that at the moment.
But today they're pushing forward some of their plans to increase prison places and cut back on re-offending. Well, Shabana Mahmood would be the Justice Secretary enacting those plans if you win the election.
But they just talked to the Tory. Why have they got another one?
I want to start, though, Shabana, with the comments that Nigel Farage made about Rishi Sunak not understanding our culture and his explanation of those remarks this morning. Mel Stride said he was very uncomfortable with what he had done there. What did you think listening to that?
Well, look, I think this is a classic Nigel Farage trick. Lean just enough to signal a bit of a dog whistle and then lean straight back and sound perfectly reasonable and say something good about the contribution that
hiding his power level
soldiers.
Yeah, exactly. It's the classic Nazi technique, and he's very good at it. Yeah.
Yep, literally. I mean, again, it's all the stuff that ContraPoints talked about in the All Right video.
Yep.
Made towards the war effort. We can all see exactly what Nigel Farage is doing. He's got form. It's completely unacceptable. This is a man that has a track record of seeking to divide communities. He just wants to do it with a veneer of respectability whilst he's at it.
Okay, well, that's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens with those remarks through the course of the day. Let's talk then about your brief of justice, courts, prisons and offending. Now, through the campaign, as viewers always do, also get in touch with us. People are also getting in touch with the BBC through Your Voice, Your Vote, where people can put forward their questions through the election. And we've had an interesting question from Chris Tebby in Nottingham, who's asked, without tax rises, how do the parties intend to address overcrowding in prisons? We know that it is a big, serious problem. So how would you address overcrowding in prisons if, as Labour repeatedly tells us, you're not planning a big tax?
Prison investment is capital investment. Therefore, it's fiscal expansion. You don't need to spend tax money. You can do it through borrowing. There you go. Question answered. Simple as that.
Do you think that's the answer she's going to give?
No, they're going to close the tax gap. They're going to
make efficiencies in the prison system.
Yeah, efficiency savings.
Tax rises.
Well, actually, part of the reason we've got overcrowding in our prisons is because the government has run out of space because they haven't delivered.
Well, have they thought about making, those little pod hotels you get in like Tokyo? Have they thought about making prisons like that, like little beehives for prisoners? That would open up loads of space, wouldn't it? Actually, I shouldn't say that because they are right wing enough. They would do that. Oh fuck.
Full 20,000 prison places that they said they would do by next year. It's actually not a money problem in that respect. The money has already been allocated in the Ministry of Justice budget. It's actually a failure of the government because they've allowed the planning system to get in the way and they've allowed complaints from their members of parliament, backbenchers in particular, to stop any building in our country. So this is actually about the government having the will to get prisons built. On day one, we would designate prisons as being of national importance so that those decisions are ultimately made by ministers rather than the usual planning process.
If you become just...
And where do we think the middle-class wankers of Westminster are going to put those prisons? Do you think they're going to build them outside Ralph Fiennes' house? In the leafy suburbs of Surrey? No. It's going to be poor people areas again. As always.
Yeah.
I want them to be able to override NIMBYist shit if it's done fairly. But the problem is it won't be done fairly.
Only in Knightsbridge. We demolish Harrods and replace it with a massive prison.
Why demolish it? It's a perfectly good building. It's already sectioned off into different shopping sectors. All you need to do is put bars on the front of each one of them. Bingo! Massive prison right in the centre of London. Let's go.
Justice Secretary, then you could force communities around the country to accept a jail, prison being built or expanded in their community, whether they like it or not.
Well, we would always want to work with local authorities.
Also, pause
and
one
local
sec, Kev.
communities.
Opened up my Twitter. Very first post is an independent article saying proportional representation would open the door to people like Nigel Farage. Oh, it turns out an electoral system where somebody who has votes gets seats because they've been voted for. Wow, I couldn't believe it.
You're
what
literally,
a crazy idea.
You're just making anti-democracy arguments there. Like, if the British public vote for Nigel Farage, then they vote for Nigel Farage, and that should be represented in Parliament. Otherwise, what you have is not a representative Parliament. What you have is two parties that are exactly the fucking same, that no one likes.
Exactly. Maybe make some arguments to debunk what Nigel Farage says, or offer an alternative into his policy perspectives. Now, that's your fault if people are voting for Nigel Farage because you suck. Be better politicians.
Oh no, the people voted the way I don't like. They shouldn't have representation.
It is crazy.
An interesting argument for a pro-democracy person.
It is crazy just how often people will say from like the centre and from like the briefcase wing of the Labour Party, they'll say things like
love it. Sorry.
Like, they'll continually say things like, you can't tell the electorate that they're wrong because we said that they should have voted for us in 2019 and they didn't. You can't say the electorate are wrong. We have to change to make it so that the electorate will like us again, because otherwise you're telling the electorate they were wrong not to vote for us in the first place. We have to change the party. Yet when it comes to things like people voting for Nigel Farage, or people like voting for Brexit, they say, "Oh, it was a scam. It was a sham referendum. It was a sham election. If Nigel Farage did really well," I'm like, "Well, no. Well, first of all, people are allowed to not like the European Union, for example. I have my doubts. I have my thing. They've got some pros and its cons, and broadly, on balance, I think it's better than worse. But regardless, people are allowed to dislike it. People are allowed to have an opinion different from yours, and are allowed to vote against it when given the choice. And they've made their choice, and you don't like it, so suck it up." I did. I sucked it up, and I wanted to get the best deal, and you've wanted to frustrate the process. So let's get on with that. And when they vote for Nigel Farage, it's your fault. You have not provided an alternative to it. The Liberals will always do this. It's happening in France. It's happened in Portugal. It's happened in Sweden. It's happening in Finland. It's happening in all of these other countries, like Austria, where the far right have been surging because fucking shit libs have not offered a reasonable alternative to them. And they get mad at the electorate for not voting the way they expect them to vote. And I'm like, when we do it, when they don't vote for the left, apparently it's our fault. But for them, it's the electorate's fault. It's a real kind of singular, double standard that they play here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, I just wanted to grill, and you voted a different way. So I'm just essentially going to ignore your vote because I'm democracy. Brilliant. Thanks, guys.
Of course,
but you just said you would take the power to make the decision yourself.
We would always want to work with local communities, and we would, of course, deal with.
Okay, so why does the minister need to be involved in this at all then? You can't have your cake and eat it. You either want to impose this from Westminster, or you want to work with local communities. That's the way it has to be.
Infrastructure issues that might be raised, transport links. It's in everyone's interest that the sites that are chosen for a prison building programme are suitable sites and ultimately successful sites as well. But I have a prison in Birmingham Ladywood constituency, so I know what it is to have a prison in your patch, and I consider these to be public assets that are necessary for public protection and in our national interest. And so when a site is suitable, and we have made sure that the infrastructure and the transport is right, prisons are going to be built.
If you take over at the Ministry of Justice in a few weeks' time, though, you'll have an immediate problem of prisons being absolutely full to the brim. Now, the government has been trying to manage this by letting people out early. Would you continue that?
Well, look, I think actually the government needs to level with the public. We all know that prisons are running at either 98% capacity or 99% capacity.
So if you become Justice Secretary, as you hope...
It's a dereliction of duty that the government hasn't actually released all of the figures about their early release scheme. They've actually been doing that in secret. It would be irresponsible for me from opposition, without seeing the data about the number of offenders that have been released or having all of that information to help to make those decisions.
But hang on, this is a question of principle. The government has been dealing with intense overcrowding in prisons by letting some offenders out early. Would you stop that, or would you continue with it?
Well, the government has been doing that in secret without...
I mean, I don't want to defend Shabana Mahmood because she's a twat, but she literally just said, I haven't been given the information by government, so I can't really tell you how bad the problem is, and therefore my response to it as a potential minister is moot, because I'm literally groping around in the dark at this point. So
very limited, incredibly limited. Yeah.
Like just repeating the question doesn't make me have access to the numbers, dickhead.
Releasing any of the data
my
about the
question
number.
is
let me address that point as well.
You want to be the Justice Secretary in 4 weeks.
No, and I will address the whole point, but I think it's important to recognise we've got a dereliction of duty from this Prime Minister.
And you've made that point, so I'd like you to answer the question for our viewers.
I can't rule anything in or out because it would be completely irresponsible from opposition without all of the information to hand to make a decision about what we may or may not continue. What I can say is we will be transparent, we will release those figures because we've been calling on the government to release those figures.
So but Shabana Mahmood, can you just guess? Can you just guess what the problem is, please?
At the end of the day, like the problem, especially in the prisons, like capital investment. That's it. It's capex. That's the problem. It's a problem in the NHS. It's a problem in schools. It's a problem everywhere. The budgets have been slashed so much that money's been taken out of capex to put into making sure that we can run the day-to-day spending of these departments. Like we need capital investment, and the government have deliberately put it on the back burner. Remember, like the 400 schools cut down to 50 for capex renovations, for like the fucking rack concrete shit. That's happening across all government departments because huge cuts into service provision have had to take money away from capital investment to try and fix the shit that's already breaking that should have been fixed by the capital investment in the first place. Like that's just basically a problem with everything. But Shabana is right that unless she gets her hands on the books to know all the intricacies of where these things have come out, where all the policies have failed, like she can't really give you a proper answer.
Yeah.
Is necessary in the national interest to get control of our prisons and to keep the public safe.
But you are not ruling out continuing early release.
It would be irresponsible to make those decisions from opposition without all of the information.
It's so annoying. It's so annoying the things she will and won't push back on.
Yeah.
Just fucking useless. Worse than useless. A dangerous politician, quote unquote journalist.
To hand. An incoming Labour government, if we're privileged enough to win, would have to lift that bonnet and see what horrors await.
But you have not ruled out continuing with early release. And you have committed also to publishing the numbers of doing that if you end up in that position.
We've been pressing the government to release those figures.
And
since
you're committing to doing that
they've done it in secret. We will, of course, want to be open and transparent with the public about the scale of the crisis.
There's another interesting point of principle, because it used to be that politicians on both sides used to talk about wanting to get the prison population down. Our viewers will remember Ken Clarke, when he was in charge a long time ago, he used to talk about getting prison numbers down. On a point of principle, as somebody who wants to be in charge of the justice system, would you like the prison population to go up or down?
I think the prison population needs to reflect the number of offences that judges deem to be necessary for a custodial sentence. So it just has to track whatever is the need. We have to have enough prison places in the system. Of course, I want it to come down because what I really want is for us to be a much more successful country at cutting reoffending. 80% of offenders in our country are actually reoffenders. We have a reoffending crisis that is actually exacerbating the capacity crisis that we have in our prison system. I would like us to be in a position where, as a society, we are creating better citizens out of people that go into our prison estate rather than the better criminals that they're currently coming out as.
But you are saying you would continue with providing 20,000 extra places as the government does. And it's interesting because Keir Starmer used to say, and this is a direct quote from him, increasing prison places does not reduce crime.
Well, we need to increase the number of prison places because we have a capacity crisis, but alongside that you do have to deal.
So is that Keir Starmer going back on yet another thing he used to believe?
I mean, the issue of course is, like, if crime rates are high, like, you will need to have more prisons to put people in the prisons. Like, I'm not necessarily denigrating Shabana Mahmood's position here, or this really very unfortunate freeze frame we've got her going here, but
that is adorable, yes.
It's pretty bad for her. But like at the end of the day, like if people are committing crimes, you're going to need the prison places to put them in. And of course, we do want to bring down reoffending. That's also important as well. You know, tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime. It's not a problem. This isn't like a bad issue. Of course, it's the, you know, the issue, the real issue, of course, at the moment is that there are people who do need to be in prison.
Yep.
They're like literally rapists and people who are dangerous to society. Yeah, need to be in fucking prison. And at the moment, we have prisons full of people on fucking IPP sentences who have been there for a decade for stealing a fucking shoe. Like, we need to have. There are plenty of non-violent criminals who should be released from prison for being there for no reason on IPPs, who should never be going to prison in the first place. You should be put through rehabilitation programs to try and get them out of the cycle, and also we should be fixing crime from the root source by tackling inequality, by tackling poverty, by tackling like the breakdown of the social contract in our society, and that would bring down the prison population over time. But that doesn't happen immediately, and spare prison capacity is always useful, so we don't overcrowd our prisons, and we can distribute the prison population much better amongst prisons, so that we are better at rehabilitating them, better at getting them out of cyclical crime, get better at making sure that our prisons are better places for them to be, because you know even prisoners deserve not shit places to live. Like these are all reasonable reasons to build more prisons, but you cannot fix the problem with the level of offence in this country overnight.
No.
And until that time that you've taken to reduce poverty and reduce inequality happens, you will need more prisons, and that's fine. So I don't necessarily hate. I kind of hate the framing here. That suddenly you want to build prisons equals you want to be tough on crime, or you want to be, you know, this draconian person throwing people in the slammer for no reason. But
also, we need to get rid of private prisons as well. Like that's
true.
It's just fucking disgusting. It's one of the most ghoulish things. You want to make money out of locking people in cages? You're a fucking evil cunt.
Absolutely, yeah. Real kind of awful people. But yeah, like drug decriminalisation is a thing we could do. Yeah. We could get to like again, just like non-violent offenders. What the fuck are they doing in prison?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you didn't pay your council tax. Why are you in prison then? What the fuck?
It's very silly.
That's really, that person's a danger to society. Really.
With reoffending, the rates of reoffending are sky high. They represent a failure of the prison system to rehabilitate offenders. That's bad for those people coming out of prison, but it's actually bad for wider society as well, because actually those people come out, they commit more crime, and they're straight back in again. So we do need to get to grips with reoffending. We would focus on having employment councils, working with prison and governors to have an employment council in every prison, working with local employers, making sure that the training that's on offer in our prisons reflects the jobs that are available in the local job market. That is a strategy not just for getting those offenders into work, but for cutting crime in the long term.
Now,
as well.
One of your sort of eye-catching policies that the party's put out this morning is about dealing with mopeds, those fast bikes that whiz around some communities, you know, raising merry hell. We can have a look at some of them now. We can see there are some lads going very quickly around on quad bikes. It's the kind of thing that sometimes people feel terrified of. Now, you're suggesting that you would crush those bikes seized by the police. So we've had a look at this, and actually some police forces already do it. So what's the difference in this?
Well, actually, we've been working with police forces who've been asking for this broader power. So at the moment, police forces can seize those bikes, but they have to hold on to them for 14 days. They usually impound them, and in fact, they get all...
It's 14 days. Who gives a fuck? Okay, let them sit there for 2 weeks. Look, what? That's your big policy. We're just going to not keep them for 14 days. Wow, you're really going to revolutionise the issue then.
Well, it's like the big policy of, what was it?
Dream small, everybody. Dream small.
Cracking down on the American sweet shops and supervised toothbrushing for kids. Yeah, real change being offered with this election, folks.
Honestly, it couldn't be more tinkering at the edges if it tried.
Yeah.
Day period, usually to the people that were causing the antisocial behaviour in the first place. So many police forces across the country have been complaining about this for a long time. This power that we would introduce would bring down that 14 days to 48.
Have they been complaining about the racism and domestic abuse rates amongst their own police forces, or mainly the 14 days they have to wait to crush a bike?
Hours, at which point the police can destroy that vehicle.
Okay, so more or less straight away, if somebody gets nabbed on an illegal bike, they just have it crushed then and there?
Within 48 hours, you can expect that bike to be crushed.
Okay. We were just
Wow,
talking to Matt
saving
Rack
a
from the
whole
Five
world.
Days.
I'm definitely voting Labour now, chat. Definitely, you've got me nailed on as a voter. I was pretty uninterested before when we were talking about all of the fiscal austerity and all of the maintaining conservative spending plans and all that kind of malarkey. I was pretty off the train. Now you've told me that bikes are going to get crushed efficiently. I'm all on board. That swung me
They're
round.
going to save 12 whole days. That's a dozen days they're going to save between the taking
Absolutely.
and crushing of bikes. That honestly, Britain,
Tough on bikes, tough on the causes of bikes.
Britain, a brighter future awaits us in the glorious sunlit uplands of a Labour government. I can't
Get
wait.
Britain crushing again.
Woo!
About the party, the manifesto process, and he was very clear that the unions are not going to give you a free pass. And some of the unions, Unite Union, didn't sign off the manifesto this time. Last week there was a huge issue on the Labour left about how Diane Abbott had been treated. Just on a broad principle, if you are lucky enough to win and you win well, will it have been worth alienating some of your traditional supporters?
Well, firstly,
Yes.
Yes.
That's what they think.
Yes, because they're Trotskyist scum.
Well, at the end of the day, they fully believe that they shouldn't and ever need to care about what we do or don't do. They literally want us gone. They don't want to interact with us. They don't want our support. They would rather we vote for somebody else. You know, fine, fuck it. Absolutely happy to never be associated with pricks like this ever again. For as long as I live.
Yep.
Never ever want to be
would never
associated
do.
with them.
our trade union movement the disrespect of assuming that they would give any government, including a Labour government, any kind of easy ride or a blank cheque. Look, we will be putting forward, and you will see on Thursday when our manifesto is launched, a positive programme for change in our country. We've had chaos under the Tories for 14 years. If they're elected again, we'll have 5 more years of chaos. We can turn the page and start to rebuild our country.
That's true. They're not just crushing bikes, they're crushing people's hopes too. Very much
True.
so.
Exactly. Like, you remember, no hope is better than false hope.
Yeah,
Quote delivered directly from West Streeting.
I know, exactly. And you just think, okay, well, how about doing actual hope then? Why is it going to be a false hope? Give us actual fucking hope, you prick.
Yeah.
Ugh.
With a clear plan, which is what the Labour Party is putting forward. And I know that everybody...
Wes Streeting's going to be Prime Minister one day, isn't he?
Oh, 100%. I fully believe, right? You know, remember how Keir Starmer was like an empty suit who got groomed to be Prime Minister by Labour together? Obviously, I've regaled the story many times to chatters on both of our ends. They know full well just how much Keir Starmer has been their plant on the inside for 7 years at this point. But that doesn't mean he doesn't care. He's just being driven by somebody else. The tail is wagging the dog, so to speak. And once he becomes useless to them, i.e. once they've won the election, you better to believe he's going to be out and, you know, some other fucker from Labour together is going to replace him, like Wes Streeting or whatever.
Yeah.
Someone that they know, people and Labour members wouldn't have voted for it, that they wouldn't have believed the lies coming from the leadership election. They had to find somebody outside the right-wing clique who was also happy to serve in the Corbyn government to make it look like he had legitimacy in the eyes of the left wing within the party when making those promises that he was never going to keep. Again, watch the Owen Jones interview with Curtis Daly. He talks so much like inside stuff about what happened during the leadership election. Really, really worth your time, guys. Really, really recommend it.
wants to see a Labour government and can get behind that plan.
That sounded like it might almost have been page 1 of a manifesto. It sounded pretty scripted, but campaigning. We are in a campaign.
We're in a campaign,
It's
Laura.
always good to have you here with us in the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for your time. Well, you know, the election is not just about the tussle between Shabana Mahmood's party and the Conservatives. There is a whole array of different races. In Scotland, the SNP is fighting to hold on to many of its massive 43 seats that it won in Scotland last time. It's had a very tough time and a drop in their support since Nicola Sturgeon quit. Stephen Flynn is the party's leader in the Commons, and he's with us from Aberdeen. Beautiful day there, Stephen Flynn. It's good to have you with us. It's interesting, during the campaign, you sounded like a bit of a different SNP. On Friday's big BBC debate, you didn't talk about independence at all. Have you given up?
Not at all, Laura. And, you know, I trust the nous of the Scottish people to know that the Scottish National Party fully believe in an independent Scotland, and I'm sure all of your viewers already know that. Of course, we are in a general election.
So they get criticised if they bring up independence, and then they get criticised if they don't bring up independence. Okay. Well, it's almost like you're setting something up there.
Campaign, and that means we need to focus upon the biggest issues at Westminster, and that's austerity. £18 billion of public sector cuts coming down the line, what the IFS regard as a conspiracy of silence, the consequence of Brexit, and of course the ongoing cost of living crisis which people are facing. We're willing to deal with these issues head on. We're willing to challenge an incoming Labour government on their conspiracy of silence with the Tories on these big issues, and hopefully following
the other guy's the leader of the Scottish Parliament is John Swinney, whereas this guy Stephen Flynn is the leader of the Scottish National Party at Westminster.
Yeah, exactly.
So
because of course the leader of the party is going to be the one that is most relevant to them, and as they are a party who wants to be out of Westminster, they believe Holyrood is the parliament that represents them as the national party that wants to be gone. So that's why that their actual leader is the one that they have in their devolved parliament, and their Westminster leader is specific to their interaction with the government, which essentially is just, you know, attacking them on the fact that they want to become independent.
Can we leave, please? We'd like not to be here, if that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
The general election, we'll be able to put some guts into the House of Commons to deal with these issues in order to improve the outcomes for people in Scotland.
But I don't remember ever seeing an SNP campaign like it, where basically anybody hardly ever mentioned the I word. And your party's policy was to treat this general election as a de facto referendum on independence. So isn't it a bit strange that you're not talking about it proactively? Or does it actually tell us that you know it's on the back burner for many millions of voters, and that's why you don't want to highlight it?
Well, of course, that was never an adopted party political position. Our position is very clear. The page 1, line 1 of our manifesto will say a vote for the SNP is a vote for an independent nation. That's what the SNP stand for. That is what we believe in. And of course, if we win the election, it'll be for the UK Parliament, it'll be for Keir Starmer, in all likelihood, the next Prime Minister, to then determine whether he will adhere to the democratic wishes of the people of Scotland, or whether he'll simply follow the well-trodden path of Theresa May, of Boris Johnson, of Liz Truss and of Rishi Sunak by denying the democratic will of the people of Scotland. That's very much a question for the Labour Party. I'm fully focused on making sure that we win this election in Scotland, that we put independence in the forefront of people's minds, but we also focus heavily on the cost of living crisis, on the damage being caused by austerity, on the damage being caused by Brexit, and our positive vision to deal with that, to rejoin the European single market, to grow the economy by delivering net zero, to make sure that we have investment in our NHS and we tackle the cost of living crisis by providing people with financial support. That's in stark contrast to what's on offer from the main Westminster establishment parties. The SNP will never cosy up to the establishment in Westminster because we believe in Scotland's future.
But you have been, though, shifting your tone in various different areas. As your polling numbers have been very challenging for you, you have shifted position on various things. You're talking at us from your sunny, beautiful Aberdeen constituency, where North Sea oil and gas supports thousands and thousands of jobs. Now, Nicola Sturgeon used to say she was very sceptical about new licences being granted for more development. But the new First Minister, John Swinney, doesn't take quite that stance. And Kate Forbes, his deputy, has said that new developments could quite possibly go ahead. So you have changed your tune.
Well, what we believe in, Laura, is a just and sustainable transition that protects the future employment of the tens of thousands of people who live behind me. Now, the reality is at this election, there are 3 options on the table. That just and sustainable transition that protects workers and creates the new net zero jobs of tomorrow. There's the Labour Party position, which of course would scrap 100,000 jobs and wouldn't invest in that net zero future because they've rolled back on their £28 billion net zero commitment. And then, of course, there's the Conservative Party position, which is to act like oil and gas will last forever when it won't. They're almost becoming climate deniers like Nigel Farage. So
it is frustrating that somebody who has such a strong platform outside of this has to get cowed by certain swing demographics. They feel like, again, like literally,
Well, to be fair, it's Scotland's big trump card. The only way it could survive realistically, because we've obviously the neoliberal experiment has shut down the fucking shipyards and gotten rid of coal mining and all the rest of it. So the only thing it has, realistically, to prop up the economy there would be oil. So they kind of have to. They have to essentially kowtow to it in a way.
Because again, if they were running on a platform that said, you know what, we don't believe in this windfall tax on the oil and gas reserves in the North Sea that we own, because it would cost jobs. What we would actually do is we would nationalise it if we were independent.
Oh, that would be fucking.
We would nationalise it immediately, so we don't need a windfall tax at all, because all of those profits would be going to us, into our treasury, for us to be able to spend on retraining and on the green transition, protecting jobs, and creating revenue for our treasury. But they don't do that. They just talk about how it's going to cost jobs for the private sector to get charged some money for the shit that they've done, which is a really shitty position.
Yep. No, I agree. It would be fucking dope, yeah. Yeah, Scotland could use wind power to power Bitcoin mines. True.
I mean, they're very windy and they've got lots of hills. Like, they should be clamouring for green investment to come to Scotland to build wind farms all over the empty fucking moors. Like, the mountain ranges.
You heard the NIMBY. They're going to build over 900% of Scotland with wind farms.
Oh my god, I remember that moment. That was crazy.
Fucking mental.
The option for people in Scotland is very clear.
You criticise Labour's plans for a windfall tax and their overall tax rate on oil and gas profits to 78%, and you say, and you've just repeated it there, that could cost 100,000 jobs. But the SNP has backed a windfall tax of 75%. So why is a 78% windfall tax a complete disaster and a 75% tax rate something that you support?
That's fair. That's a fair question.
Yeah.
So there's two answers to that. Firstly, the additional revenue which the Labour Party are seeking to take in will not go into household bills. What it's going to do is flow from Scotland straight into nuclear power projects in England, which is of no benefit to people in Scotland. But secondly...
Well, that's generally true. England's neoliberal bullshit has been propped up by Scottish oil this entire time. And if they leave, honestly, we owe them a lot of fucking money. Realistically. We're not going to pay them, of course. The London government are never going to give them a penny. But really, we owe them fucking billions.
And these aren't my figures, 100,000 jobs. These are independent investment experts. It's what Unite the Union refer to as putting people on the scrap heap. That is what Labour's future offers, is 100,000 job cuts. And I will stand against that, because that's not...
It is tilting to me that the reason why Unite didn't endorse the manifesto was over issues to do with the windfall tax, not, you know, all the fucking child poverty that they were promising, which is quite funny to me. But it's true. I mean, it is literally true that if you could theoretically live these people on the scrap heap if you didn't properly have like a phased transition with all this new training and the way in which you could transfer people across industries.
If only we had an example of literally dozens and dozens of towns and villages throughout England and Wales and Scotland that had a very similar problem with another kind of fossil fuel, like coal, for instance. The mine was the massive employer in the town, and the fact that they didn't have a phased transition or actually put any money into retraining or reskilling people and just left them to rot for decades and decades. If only we had loads of those examples everywhere. You'd think Westminster would take notice of that and do something like that, but
because there is literally a way of doing a just transition where you protect this stuff. But, you know, it's clear that Unite have decided that there isn't enough provision for that in the manifesto. But the manifesto is so fucking empty. It's it's 35 pages. It's nothing. It's a real kind of empty document. So, you know, they may well do, they may not. Who the fuck knows? Because they don't seem to know, because they don't have any plans. They're just going to give people the fucking Labour Party mystery box.
Yeah, but the people giving you the mystery box shouldn't know it's a mystery as well. Like, they should know what's in the box, surely.
Exactly, that's how stupid this all is.
The interests of Scotland's economy. We need to make sure that we have a just transition which allows us to meet our climate targets. Now, just over my shoulder is a wind farm which Donald Trump, the famous climate activist, opposed. That power is being...
The famous climate activist. That's a solid line. I like that.
Yeah.
That provides enough energy to power all the homes in Scotland. Just out the back of this building I'm in is the largest floating offshore wind farm in the world. Scotland's future when it comes to renewables is huge, but we need to grasp it. The only way to grasp it is to invest. The Labour Party don't want to invest in that future. They walked away from £28 billion. The SNP want to invest in that future, and that is the difference of this election.
Stephen Flynn,
good
thank
answer.
you so much indeed.
Yeah, no, that's that. He did well again. He's actually a relatively impressive politician. Yeah.
Well, he certainly performed the best at the debate. At the
Yeah.
seven-way debate, I thought he was a real.
For
I don't though he'd had no bad moments throughout the entire debate. Whereas I thought Carla did well too, but you could point to a couple of moments where she stumbled or where she kind of got outplayed or where her rhetoric didn't quite match up with public opinion, so it might turn people off. Stephen Flynn, wall-to-wall bangers, rhetorically, in terms of his poise, in terms of his response to other parties, in his positioning against other parties, he absolutely knocked out of the park. That is like the best debate.
He's got a kind of ballsiness to him where he doesn't take the shit of the people around him. Nigel Farage can come up with some shit and he's just going to carry on and go, oh, fuck you, Nigel, and just carry on and do his bit. And that, I think people respond well to that. It's not arrogant, it's confident, which is rare.
Exactly. There's a difference between between strong in a debate and being belligerent. Like, it's the difference between Stephen Flynn and like Rishi Sunak from the debate he had with Keir Starmer, where he looked like a petulant child rather than somebody being honest with their interlocutor.
Trying to talk over the people.
That's like the big difference between the two, and why I think Rishi Sunak comes off as such a massive wanker, why people like Stephen Flynn come across as being more kind of a man of the people, really, I guess.
Well, because he is human, whereas Rishi Sunak is a weird lizard alien boy in a tiny human suit.
That's the thing about Stephen Flynn, is that so much he manages to do all of this while still coming across as somebody who's like a genuine person. He doesn't come across as somebody who's gone to politician school either. It's really refreshing to see a strong politician who hasn't gone through like the finishing school for the political class again, because he's Scottish, of course. He's not gone to Eton, has he?
No. Although you do have Scottish people like fucking Gove. They exist.
True.
From Aberdeen, looking glorious this morning, and there is a list of all the other candidates standing in Aberdeen South, his constituency, and just a reminder that do have a look on the website to see who the candidates putting themselves forward in your part of the world are. Right, let's see what our panel made of those two interviews. Amber, you were Home Secretary for a long...
Do I give a fuck about this now at 1 a.m?
I mean, I've got a segment I'm going to do as well, so I need to stick with that for another bit, because I've just not put out any content, because I was off on Saturday, because I was my day off after doing the debate on Navarra on Friday, and because I started so fucking late tonight, I've not put a segment out today. So that's 2 days without any segments or anything like that. So I need to do a segment. So if you want to pop off, that's not a problem. I don't really care about watching the rest of whatever these people have to say about what we saw from the Laura Ginsburg show.
I don't give a shit. I just don't fucking care.
No worries. I do need to do a segment like at 1:20 in the morning, so I'm sure that there's still a good amount of people watching. I think across YouTube, I've still got 209 viewers across both platforms, which is crazy at this time in the morning. So thank you for sticking around with us, fellow night owls. I guess.
Indeed, yeah. Degenerates is what I would say, but yes. Okay, I'll fuck off and leave you be. Everyone go and follow No Justice MTG.
And everyone on my end, go and follow Kevin Logan as well. KF Logan 1875 over on Twitch, at Clocky111 on YouTube. Remember, YouTube subs as well as Twitch follows. Make sure you follow on both platforms so that you always get access to Kevin's content.
Indeed. I'll speak to you later.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Well, there we go, chatterinos. You could raid Helen. Yeah, actually, I'll raid into Helen on Twitch. Although, actually, I don't know, because if she's doing a bit, I don't want to interrupt the bit. Actually, no, yeah, I won't raid into her. Because she's recording a thing. But yeah. Anyway, who's going on Twitch? Let's have a look. There'll be someone with the left-oid around, I'm sure. What's this? Adrian Vixen's going, so I'll send you over there. She's good beans. I don't know if I will be back later today. I'm not sure. I need to try and sort out my fucking sleep and all the rest of it, which has gotten crazy out of control. So I am not certain whether I'll be back or not. Check out the Discord below.
Said that.
Oh, hang on, that's check out the Discord below for updates, which I might or might not give if I remember. But either way, thank you all for listening and watching. You people are fucking amazing. Thank you for all of your support. Yeah, stay beautiful. No pass around.